This is how my campaign ended. Not with glorious conquest, but with my army slain, my heroes dead, my treasury empty, and the sound of laughter from my enemies. So I tried again, this time with knowledge forged over 2,000 years ago. The story of Three Kingdoms happens in 190 AD. At least, that's when my campaign starts. When the corrupt and crumbling Han Empire falls, it causes a power vacuum to form. Independent warlords raise their banners, clamoring to become the next emperor. There are a host of faction leaders to choose from, but I played as the evil tyrant, Dong Zhuo. I chose him because he has the only character I know of, Liu Bei, said to be the strongest warrior of this period. Hundreds of hours in several Total War games, and my strategy is the same every time. Stack up a strong army and march east. For the sake of the strategy, I immediately fired my inferior generals and their troops, and raised an invincible army. Shielded swordsmen, crossbowmen, and heavy Jillian cavalry. Not a single peasant militia allowed. Under Liu Bei, this army will be the greatest force in all of China.
China balances on the tip of a spear. Which way will it fall? I honestly care not, so long as the battle is worthy. Are there any who would face my might? Any who can? I have felled 1,000 men and will fell 1,000 more.
I engaged with minimal diplomacy, just barely enough to make sure my army was where the enemy was. You see, this army was expensive, soaking up nearly the entirety of my income. I could not afford another army. I would have to expand
or die.
I shared western borders with Ma Tang, but we had peace and trade. He was of no danger to me. So I chose Yuan Shao as my target. Yuan Shao was Dong Zhuo's sworn enemy. Yuan Shao's lands were eastward of mine. However, Dong Zhuo likes boiling people alive and also holds the emperor hostage. So he's at war with like half the map right off the bat. There are no shortage of enemies I need to get through to get to Yuan Shao. I sent Liu Bei east, and we were met with a string of victories against Yuan Shao and Liu Chong, even going as far as executing any faction leader I captured to ensure that no one would stand in my way. My invincible army was powerful. Even when sieging the enemy and outnumbered 2-1, Liu Bei would dominate the enemy with ease. Under my command, Liu Bei conquered several cities until he came across enemy armies attempting to siege the Hulao Pass, which guarded the east of my new lands. I ordered Liu Bei to move close, and he was quickly beset upon by 3 stacked armies. Bong Sun Zan, who resides northeast of Yuan Shao's lands, led the first army. Yuan Shao's generals led the other 2. It would have been tactically sound on their part to crash their 3 armies against my 1. But each general eyed each other. They did not want to share the glory of taking down the legendary Liu Bei. Thus, each general struck one at a time, and one by one, Liu Bei destroyed them all. I breathed a sigh of relief. For despite our victories, the invincible army had been weakened greatly. But just when I thought it was over, that damn coward Cao Cao added a fourth army, finally defeating Liu Bei.
It is the unknown, creeping vine that can choke the mightiest tree.
I wasn't deterred. He got lucky that time. Liu Bei eluded captivity and returned to my palace, demanding another army. I make him a second and more powerful invincible army, improved with shield spearmen who have greater survivability than the swordsmen I employed prior. Liu Bei led the invincible army east once more, finally marching directly towards Yuan Shao. I took 2 of Yuan Shao's cities to the point that he begged for peace.
You are too greedy.
However, through the thick smoke of Yuan Shao's burning defenses, Cao Cao appeared again. Unlike my other enemies, Cao Cao gathered 3 fully stacked armies to fight me at the same time. Ha! Despite this, my invincible army shatters his pathetic attempt, sending Cao Cao southward. But that damn Cao Cao was clever, bringing another army directly north and keeping his surviving army south. Whenever Liu Bei reconquered the city north of him, Cao Cao would recapture the city south. If Liu Bei went back south, Cao Cao's general would recapture the north. He kept his distance just enough that Liu Bei was unable to reach either army. And if Liu Bei refused to reconquer either city, his army would eventually run out of supplies and the men would starve. Staying still for an extended period was also not an option, for Liu Bei's professional army costed 4,500 coins every turn, bleeding the treasury dry. On top of this, Cao Cao sent agents to sabotage Liu Bei's supplies. But the invincible army knows no defeat. I ordered him to encamp until an opportunity rose. Finally, Cao Cao gathered both of his armies in the northern city of Julu, which he had just recaptured. Sensing opportunity, I ordered Liu Bei to cut the head off this snake. It was a trap. Gongsun Zan, the leader of one of the 3 armies I had destroyed near the Hulao Pass, came seeking vengeance. He brought 2 armies just north of Julu, and Cao Cao was not with 2 armies, but 3. Seeing my army, Gongsun Zan immediately engaged in combat against Liu Bei. Gongsun Zan's 2 armies, even combined, were obviously no match for Liu Bei's. However, Liu Bei became arrogant. He led the charge, far ahead of the better armored but slower spearmen. He took heavy losses by the time the spearmen and crossbowmen arrived. Gongsun Zan was defeated, but Liu Bei's heavy Jillian cavalry lost half their forces. After Liu Bei's Pyrrhic victory against Gongsun Zan, Cao Cao used his triple-stacked army against my weakened forces, defeating Liu Bei in the field of combat. I didn't lose the entire campaign, quote-unquote. It's honestly hard to fully lose in this game, unlike, say, Total War Shogun 2 and Warhammer. But my faction leader Dong Zhuo died after eating too many ancient Chinese dino nuggies. Ma Tang, the warlord in the west I had positive relations with, declared war on me and started picking off my completely undefended lands. And it would have costed like 20,000 coins to get that army back again. On top of that, I was only able to field 1 expensive army at a time. Part of the reason for that is that I'm actually pretty terrible at this game, and I cannot win without much better units. Frustrated, I closed the game. I was dusting my shelves when I came across my copy of Art of War. Sun Tzu is mentioned a few times in the game. Then, I had an idea. The General, how could this have happened? Your dad was a skill issue. Sun Tzu's The Art of War, or if directly translated, Master Sun's military methods, is referenced all over pop culture, from movies to TV shows and video games.
Are you familiar with the ancient Earth text, Sun Tzu's The Art of War?
If your enemy is superior, evade it. If angry, irritate it. If equally matched, fight. And if not, split, reevaluate.
If you're a silly internet dweller like me, you mostly know him from funny YouTube comments purposely misquoting him like the memes that make me giggle like someone who belongs in a white room. So, what do we know about Sun Tzu? Well, not a lot, and we're also not sure about the little we do know. Any mention of Sun Tzu comes from 2 books, both being inconsistent and also disagreeing with each other. Some even think the book was written by multiple people, not just one person. But the best we got is that he lived approximately around 500 BC, during the spring and autumn period of ancient China, during the decline of the Zhou dynasty. That puts him right around the time Confucius lived, and this happened. Go back about 60 years and that's when Buddha was born. Go forward 170-ish years and Alexander the Great conquers Persia. 450-ish years and Julius Caesar gets turned into a piñata. Forward 500 years and Jesus Christ flips tables and throws coins everywhere. He was born as Sun Wu, not to be confused by the Kingdom of Wu, which is where he served as a general under King Ho Lu, which is where we lead into the one story we know about Sun Tzu. The story goes that King Ho Lu read The Art of War and wanted Sun Tzu to prove that he could apply it to women. Sun Tzu accepts, and 180 palace ladies are brought to him. He divided them into 2 companies and placed the king's favorite concubines to be the heads of each. He ordered them to take spears in their hands. They review basic movement commands and he starts to drill. But instead, they laughed at him. He said, if words of command are not clear and distinct, if orders are not thoroughly understood, then the general is to blame. So he reviews the movement commands once more and starts to drill again. And for a second time, they laugh at him. He then repeats exactly what he said before, only this time he adds, but if his orders are clear and the soldiers nevertheless disobey, then it is the fault of their officers. He orders the leaders of the 2 companies to be beheaded. King Ho Lu is watching and he's, quite frankly, horrified that 2 of his favorite concubines are about to be executed. The king's messenger essentially says, okay, we get it. To which Sun Tzu replies, no you don't. The leaders are beheaded. When they did the drill once more, the movements were followed perfectly. Sun Tzu said the soldiers are ready for inspection, willing to march even through fire and water at the king's command. The king states that he's not really feeling up for an inspection. Sun Tzu replies, the king is only fond of words and cannot translate them to deeds. After that, the king knew he was the real deal and made him general. Despite being numerically outnumbered, the Kingdom of Wu proceeds to defeat the Chu state, spreading his name for years to come. Back to The Art of War, the size of the book. I expected like a war Bible or something, but it's short. Seriously, here it is compared to the Bible. You might say, hey, that's not so different. No, it is, because this is the segment that is The Art of War in this book. It has other works added to it, but this is the segment without commentary. About 50 pages, give or take. Why did Sun Tzu write this book anyway? I wrote this book so that 2,500 years later, some guy who hides behind an anime avatar can make a YouTube video about it. True story. No, he lived at the end of a dynasty. You see, dynasties have this thing where they start really great and orderly, then they become corrupt, eventually shattering into absolute blood and chaos. It's times like these that produce new philosophers because the old systems are failing. He wrote the book as a guide for military leaders as the part of a paradigm shift from ritualized aristocratic warfare to pragmatic strategy. Now let's talk. What did I do wrong in my campaign run earlier? Well, I was fighting exactly like that. Theatrical warfare meant to show prowess instead of thinking pragmatically, to focus on tactics and strategy. Tacticians are those that make short-term actions to achieve short-term goals, like in the battlefield. Strategists are those that make long-term goals to achieve long-term objectives. I wrongly focused only on the tactician part. Bear with me here. If you've ever played League of Legends, you'll find that many lower-level players focus on something called micro, which is often about how well you play a character, outplaying the opponent. Fancy maneuvers, stuff like that. Honestly, outplays are very impressive, and many players focus on that. However, this display of skill by itself is superficial. I remember back when I used to watch a lot of these how to get better at League of Legends videos, many videos would tell you that once your micro is decent, macro is overall more important. Using wards to gather and destroy information, timing your attacks so that your character is as strong as possible before battle, predicting the enemy's whereabouts based on the character that they play and the time that they were spotted, baiting the enemy into lopsided fights, etc. Plenty of people who are excellent at micro but trash in all things macro would often reach platinum at best, while there are plenty of high-ranking players who may have indistinguishable micro from some of their peers or even better low-ranking players, but they excel at digesting and acting upon information extremely well. Anyways, that's it, League of Legends. If I keep talking about it, I'm gonna barf. Whenever I bring up a quote from The Art of War, think about how it relates to the core philosophy Sun Tzu is teaching. The entire book is about being meticulous with knowledge. Information is the ultimate weapon. The gathering of it, the secrecy of it, the usage of it. Thinking logically, pragmatism. War is only about results. To never miss an opportunity. To use deception, terrain, shame, and psychology against your enemy, not against you. And thinking ahead. Foresight, to plan ahead, to see the bigger picture. Your enemy's defeat should be certain before you meet them in the battlefield. Sun Tzu's Art of War is not just a combat manual about winning ancient field battles, it's a philosophy book about control, patience, and mastery. Okay, now I'm gonna start another campaign in Total War 3 Kingdoms, but this time, having studied Art of War, I wanted to choose a character that would best give opportunities to use what I had learned. I initially thought about Sun Jin, the tiger of Jiangdong. Loyal, fiery, and brave, Sun Jin and his family claimed their ancestry to Sun Tzu. So, perfect, right? Well, there is another. Someone who liked Art of War so much, he wrote the earliest commentary on it. You see, Art of War can be vague sometimes, so there were a good amount of commentators that interpreted it in their own ways. He exemplified the principles taught in the Art of War far better than anyone. That warlord was Cao Cao, known more commonly as, none other than Cao Cao, the very one that destroyed me in the last campaign. Cao Cao is an ambitious and cunning warlord. His intellect is only matched by his ruthlessness.
For I would rather betray the world than have the world betray me.
First, I start my campaign by fending off a detachment of Han Empire forces from my capital of Suiyang. The Han Empire's remnants serve whoever holds the Child Emperor. That man right now is none other than Dong Zhuo. I will deal with him in due time, but first to eliminate this lesser general. I am surrounded by possible enemies from all sides. I need to establish good relations quickly and pick my battles if I am not only to survive, but thrive. I also need funds, for armies are expensive. The best way to obtain both are trade agreements. I quickly establish trade with all the warlords near me. The aim right now is to conquer the Han Empire remnants to increase my power, then slowly pick off the surrounding warlords. Heishan shall be my first conquest among many. It is the rule in war, if our forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, to surround him. If 5 to 1, to attack him. If twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2. I outnumber him just about 2 to 1, so I divided my army in half. The cavalrymen poised to strike their flanks when the infantry engage. The goal for easy victories like these is not just to win, but to win with the fewest casualties, as replenishing units of troops takes seasons and sometimes even years. I trade 60 of my men for his 1,000. A stronger way than trade agreements to ensure no unexpected wars are non-aggression pacts. Only after one side cancels their pact and after one in-game year or 5 turns may war begin again. The side that breaks this trust will struggle with diplomacy as none expect them to hold up their end of the bargain. I signed this pact with Liu Bei, even at the cost of some of my money. A costly investment this early on, but a wise one nonetheless. But after I conquered another Han Empire remnant, grave news turned a victorious day into a time of mourning. My beloved father Cao Song was murdered by the vile Tao Qian, a warlord east of my lands. I chose to war with him immediately, not only for vengeance, but also land. Securing Tao Qian's lands would benefit me greatly, as he was already a strong choice as my first enemy. I signed some more non-aggression pacts and hired more soldiers, including my finest general, Xiaohai Yuan. Tao Qian will be far more dangerous than mere Han Empire remnants. I sent scouts to Tao Qian's lands while I conquered the town that stood between me and Tao Qian, owned by the Yellow Turban Rebellion that springs up every so often. But they are just as weak as the Han Empire remnants. The key here would be to lose as few people as possible, as Tao Qian had a full army nearby, making a second engagement possible. However, suddenly, Tao Qian's army disappeared. I thought he had somehow left, but the truth hit me as I marched. I was ambushed as I left my city, a foolish mistake on my part. The general who is skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. Thus, on the one hand, we have the ability to protect ourselves. On the other, a victory that is complete. Sun Tzu would frown upon my mistake, but I could still turn this around. I quickly organized a battle line and used my superior cavalry to repeatedly flank Cao Qian's forces. Had I engaged him under my terms, I would not have lost 500 men, a fifth of my forces. I will not repeat this mistake again. I almost want to thank Cao Qian for teaching me this lesson, but I have not forgotten that he still had killed my father. No mercy would be spared for Cao Qian. Cao Qian retreats with his surviving forces, but it is child's play to finish off his weakened army. I capture and execute Cao Qian, and well. Killing him earned me a most fitting prize, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. I take over another Yellow Turban land, convinced that Cao Qian's defeat would be soon. But that arrogant opportunist Yuan Shu from the west declared war on me. He would not heed me. No amount of convincing would turn him against this foolish decision. Without delay, Yuan Shu's army descends upon my westmost town. Now an army is exposed to 6 several calamities, not arising from natural causes, but faults from which the general is responsible. These are flight, insubordination, collapse, ruin, disorganized, and rout. Flight. Fighting a force far larger than yours will often cause flight. Insubordination. If the common soldiers are too strong and the officers too weak. Collapse. When the officers are too strong and the soldiers too weak. Ruin. When the officers feel resentment for their general. Disorganized. When orders are not clear and fixed duties are not in place. And rout. When a general fails to estimate the enemy's strength and allows an inferior force to engage a larger one. What we see here is flight. During their defense, the militia's morale was ruined after they saw how outnumbered they were. Not long after the fighting began, did it end. I wanted nothing more than to wipe Cao Qian's faction off the face of the earth, but I knew I was easy pickings for Yuan Shu if I continued this war. I took over a nearby Cao Qian territory to further convince his now ruling son that he would lose this war if he continued. He was ready for peace, though I suspect he wishes to strangle me here and now. The feeling is mutual. However temporary it was, a peace was signed. I moved my army west to defend against Yuan Shu's fully stacked army. My army catches up to him. Yuan Shu at this point would only have enough coin for one fully stocked army. I had a plan. If I attack him while he defended his newly conquered town, it would leave me at a severe disadvantage. Instead, I lie in wait. Thus, the highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent the junction of enemy forces. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. And the worst policy of all is to siege walled cities. My faction's ability are schemes. Low morale, limited movement. I could even manipulate faction leaders. Thus, I hid my army in the shadows, the technique Cao Qian used against me earlier. If Yuan Shu moves his army towards me, I will crush him. If he moves away, I have a scheme that cuts his army's movement by half, allowing me to catch up to him after I retake this town. Yuan Shu leaves southward. I retake the town from him after he leaves. Since it is my land once more, my troops will receive supplies and replenishment of their numbers, while Yuan Shu will not. I activate my scheme, attacking his supply chain, causing his army to move southward half the distance that it desired, allowing my army to catch up to him, balking his plans to conquer my lands by being just far away from my army. Knowing he is isolated with his army deep into my territory with no support and constant barrages of sabotage, Yuan Shu approaches me with peace. Security against defeat implies defensive tactics. Ability to defeat the enemy means taking the offensive. Standing on the defensive indicates insufficient strength. Attacking, a superabundance of strength. His sudden request for peace means he knows he has been cornered. I reject his peace. He attempted to balk my plans and take my lands. Instead, I balked his, and I am now poised to take his life. My army finally engages his. The art of war, then, is governed by 5 constant factors to be taken into account in one's deliberations when seeking to determine the conditions of attaining in the battlefield. These are moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, method, and discipline. To sum it up, will your men follow you into danger, night, Day, time, seasons, distances, danger, and security, open ground and narrow passes. Is your general a noob in battle? Is the army properly divided in the ranks? Is the army properly supplied? Therefore, in your deliberations, when seeking to determine the military conditions, let them be made the basis of a comparison. In this wise, which of the two sovereigns is imbued with moral law? 2. Which of the two generals has the most ability? 3. With whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? 4. On which side is discipline most rigorously enforced? 5. Which army is the stronger? 6. On which side are officers and men more highly trained? 7. In which army is there the greater consistency, both in reward and punishment? By these 7 considerations, I can forecast victory or defeat. Thus, do many calculations lead to victory, and few calculations lead to defeat. Let us compare the 7. 1. My men are one with me, and me with them. 2. That is me. Yuan Shu is no match for my generalship. 3. The weather is fair. There are no massive terrain advantages for either side. 4. About equal. As this is a game, discipline enforcement is not a mechanic in the game. 5. My army is stronger and in good spirits. His men have many militia who tasted defeat earlier. My infantry and cavalry are better, and my archers are equal to his. 6. Their men make up more militia that can be made to flee easily. 7. In this game, reward and punishment do not apply. Through my calculations, I shall be victorious this day. I made an example of Yuan Shu for declaring war against me. The loss of his faction's leader will ensure whatever army he attempts to conjure up to resist my counter-invasion will be beyond not enough. My enemies offer me no rest, however. Soon after I execute Yuan Shu, his half-brother Yuan Shao declares war on me. His army from the north approaches near. At this rate, my worst fears will be realized, that I will be stuck in endless wars with no gain. But perhaps, what worked on his brother could work on him. Not only will we balk his plans, but we will impose our will upon him. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. My schemes work off a unique currency called credibility. This is a risky gambit, but I will spend nearly all of it to convince another faction into a proxy war. Liu Bei, a powerful warlord who neighbors Yuan Shao's, will be an excellent victim of this stratagem. If this works, Yuan Shao will move his army back to defend his homeland. Perfect. Yuan Shu's lands are defended by a fresh army. Carefully compare the opposing army with your own, so that you may know where strength is superabundant and where it is deficient. Hence, in the wise leader's plans, considerations of advantages and disadvantages will blend together. A repeated weakness of my army right now is the lack of good ranged units. Crossbowmen, although they have a longer range, they do not output as much damage as their archer counterparts. Combined with their lack of numbers compared to the enemy, I must be the one to approach. My infantry can match his, but it is again cavalry where I am superior. I shall engage my cavalry with his. The rest of them will flank the enemy infantry. With this, Yuan Shu's lands will be mine.
Pick up your swords and be ready.
You son of a... He wasn't the only one. Hong Zhou also declared war on me. I am now in a two-front war. My only saving grace is that my army is near Liu Bei. I will turn the situation into my advantage by attacking his lands immediately. We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country. The opponent, being the defender, will surely use the high ground offered to him. To gain the advantage, we will have to lead him away from the high ground. Prior to marching here, I brought in more crossbowmen. Their range and superior numbers will force them to engage, or suffer a continuous range of bolts. There is a village obstructing our battlefield. I can use this place as a way for my cavalry to go through the enemy quickly. They will not be able to flank immediately. Instead, they will draw away some spearmen. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, crush him. Spearmen are effective against cavalry, so the enemy general will be enticed to have them chase my horsemen. But that will ensure our infantry will fight with superior numbers. Once the spearmen are sufficiently drawn away, my cavalry will harass their vulnerable archers. It will look like the cavalry are simply riding around unorderly, but their purpose could not be more precise. And with that, victory is mine. Hongzhou is next. His army marches from the south, but I am not far. However, a new issue arises. Yuan Shao's army was nearby. It seemed to be marching towards his lands, judging by how it hugs the river. I take a risk. If I engage Yuan Shao's army, my army may not be strong enough to challenge Hongzhou's. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not an acme of excellence. The thing is to see the plant before it has germinated. He wins his battle by making no mistakes. He plans no superfluous marches. He devises no futile attacks. I know Yuan Shao can easily take over my town, but to do so would be to waste precious time defending his lands from Liu Bei, only for me to take back that town once I'm finished with Hongzhou. I ignore his army and march south in haste. This guess paid off. Yuan Shao marches his army north. I had the foresight to see this, but I breathed a sigh of relief regardless. Hongzhou attempts to start a siege on my town. I activate a Sheem to cripple his army's movement. I arrive near him, as surely as his pending doom. He takes the town against the defending militia there, but they manage to inflict casualties of 600 men. He has only cornered himself in my town by taking it. If he was smart, he would have retreated to his city and fortified it. His weakened army is no match for mine in every category. His army routs in short order. After I retake my town, I siege his faction's final town. This terrain is similar to a victory I had reproduced earlier, so this is a good opportunity to go over another Sun Tzu quote. In all fighting, the direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed in order to secure victory. That the impact of your army may be like a grindstone dashed against an egg. This is affected by the science of weak points and strong. Direct method is fighting the enemy in front of you. Indirect is anything else, including flanking the enemy. Hit the enemy forces where they cannot survive. Indirect tactics, efficiently applied, are inexhaustible as heaven and earth, unending as the flow of rivers and streams. Previously, I had my cavalry act as bait. This time, the infantry will take this role. Their archers are stronger, so it is in our best interest to hit them when their infantry cannot help. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places you are not expected. My cavalry wait in the trees, hidden by the bark and leaves. Once the infantry make contact, they burst forward and charge towards the enemy archers. After they rout the archers, there's a simple manner to flank the enemy with them, routing the infantry as well. Their faction is no more, and my lands are larger for it. However, Yuan Shao brought a second smaller army to siege my northern town. These are the 5 besetting sins of a general, ruinous to the conduct of war. Recklessness, which leads to destruction, cowardice, which leads to capture, a hasty temper, which can be provoked by insults, a delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame, over-solicitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble. However, my anger against Tao Qian's faction was too great. He may have been dead, but his entire nation deserved punishment for it. I can risk losing a town, and cities require at least 1 turn to conquer, as you have to have at least 1 siege engine to begin to assault. I continue, perhaps recklessly, attacking Tao Qian's lands. Thus, we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout his ranks. He will win who prepares himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. And finally, he will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by a sovereign. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Probably his most famous quote. Hence, the experienced soldier, once in motion, is never bewildered. Once he has broken camp, he is never at loss. If you are meticulous, you can be confident, which is yet another boon. Sun Tzu would not approve, going on the offensive against a numerically superior force, but there are several tactics in Art of War that will tip the scales to my favor. The good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat, then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Thus, the good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat, but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. We will play defense, bide our time, and then when the enemy makes a mistake, we will strike with our army. Whoever is first in the field awaits the coming of the enemy, will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field has to hasten to battle and will arrive exhausted. All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. I will have my cavalry hide their position. I may be the one attacking, but too often will a general of greater force approach rather than show patience. He sent his cavalry to try and scout my hidden forces, isolated from the rest of his army. This mistake will cost him this entire battle. Our armies collide, but in his haste to engage me, he has exhausted his troops. The battle is now in our favor. I order my men to charge. But my temper and recklessness only made things worse. By focusing on Tao Qian's faction on the east, Yuan Shao not only signed a peace deal with Liu Bei, he's recruited Kong Rong into his war against me. Kong Rong's lands are located northeast of mine. Realizing my folly, I signed a temporary peace with Tao Qian's faction. A spot of good luck finally blesses me with 5 colonels of the Northern Army, giving me access to powerful northern units. They will be useful once I wrap up this war. Yuan Shao's second army invades the western town. I raise a small army in my westmost town using the funds from the peace treaties I signed with Tao Qian's faction, but it will not stop anything significant without support. I cannot stop Yuan Shao's army without my main army, but Kong Rong is attacking my eastern lands. I know I will achieve nothing if Kong Rong is not stopped here. After ruminating, I decided to hide my army in the forest, waiting for Kong Rong's army to draw near. He would surely attack the vulnerable eastern lands I had taken from Tao Qian. Kong Rong, as predicted, takes over a nearby town and heads east. My army springs into action. His unprepared, outnumbered, and outdisciplined army loses over 1,000 men at the cost of 40 of mine. I ransomed their generals. These generals were worthless and worth more in coin than in competence. Liu Bei approaches me to purchase some items, but I truthfully did not know he was so fond of me. Apparently I had warred with all of his enemies, and thus considered me a friend. At the very least, this will mean we will not war with each other, at least for now. Kong Rong decides to hole up in my former town of Luxian. I'm no stranger to committing an offense against a numerically superior force. He will learn that today. His infantry clumsily pile into mine without any attempt at surrounding my forces. This allows me to use my cavalry to flank the right side of his forces. Most men are right-handed, holding the shield on their left. Thus, I am a believer that flanking from the right will cause far more damage. One by one, their infantry scatter like leaves on the wind. Perhaps after today, Kong Rong the merchant will learn not to meddle in the affairs of generals. Kong Rong is all too eager for a quick peace agreement after the lashing I gave him and his men. I used this to my advantage. I demanded an extraordinary amount of money in return. He gives in. Yuan Shao's secondary army is near, meaning another bloody conflict will happen. I desired to see this to the end, but I was unwilling to lose good generals because of my own mistakes. If the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. In war, then, let your great object be victory, not lengthy campaigns. Thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. Being hasty is sometimes bad, but a lack of speed is always bad. There is another quote from chapter 11. Rapidity is the essence of war. Now, when your weapons are dulled, your ardor damped, and your strength exhausted, and your treasure spent, other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. Then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensue. I opened diplomacy with Yuan Shao. He got some land he wanted from me, and knows he is poised to lose them if I decided to continue. I used this opportunity to get some funds from him. The men and I needed rest. But equally as importantly, my war chest needs time to recover. Afterwards, Yuan Shao asked for military access, which would allow both our sides to march armies across our lands with no diplomatic issue. I deny him. I do not know what his plans are, and I do not want to give him the tools to carry it out. We cannot enter into an alliance with neighboring princes until we are acquainted with their designs. I signed some more non-aggression pacts, but not long after I gathered my new army, far more powerful than the previous ones. The colonels from the North followers I received earlier allowed me access to powerful northern units like the horseback archers, special infantry, and extra powerful cavalry. If I wait too long, someone might get to my prize first. That goal, of course, is the emperor that the warlord Dong Zhuo holds hostage. Once the northern army is ready, I march west towards Dong Zhuo's lands. Elite as it is, I only have one army. A second one is mustering and will arrive in a few turns. However, I have a plan. The northern army marches to Hongnong, a town under Dong Zhuo. The militia there are no match for the elite northern troops. However, the horse archers are fewer in number in exchange for their incredible mobility. They will take some getting used to. The issue now arises from the passes that surround Dong Zhuo's capital of Chang'an. There are 3 ways to get to the capital: the Tong Pass, the Wu Pass, and the long way around. The issue with both the passes are that they must be sieged for a minimum of 1 turn to gain a siege engine, and there is only one way in, allowing for little maneuverability. The garrisons in these passes are not to be trifled with, as they are held by soldiers, not militia. My second army arrives. However, there is yet another problem. The land outside these passes are barren and provide little in the way of supplies. My second army will starve if I do not strike fast. Thus, I ordered the second army to siege the Wu Pass. Our army size is equally matched. My battering ram breaks down their gates. But my forces get stuck on the gates for too long, sapping them of their stamina and maneuverability. This loss is a painful reminder of exactly why Sun Tzu recommends against sieging, especially against an enemy entrenched in a superior position like a fortified pass. We may distinguish 6 kinds of terrain to wit: accessible ground, entangling ground, temporizing ground, narrow passes, precipitous heights, and positions at a great distance from the enemy. Accessible ground, both sides can easily approach, encouraging open battle. Entangling ground is easy to enter, hard to leave. Retreat is risky. Temporizing ground allows you to delay, but whoever moves first will be disadvantaged. Wait and observe. Narrow passes, occupy them first, then wait for the enemy. If the enemy has occupied it first, only go after it if it is weakly garrisoned. Precipitous heights, if the enemy is there first, retreat and try to entice them away. This is high ground, natural defense advantage. Positions at a great distance from the enemy, long supply lines, hard to support your army. I make the decision to send my second army home. My finances cannot hold the strain from supporting 2 powerful armies for long, especially one that will take a long time to replenish. Dong Zhuo has sent an army led by General Ji Ling, and the latter intending on marching towards me through the Wu Pass. My army has not fully recovered from its battle on Hongnong. This would be a tough battle to win. That is, if there was a fight. Ji Ling was a spy I implanted several turns ago. He had been continually telling me the whereabouts of the armies, even Dong Zhuo's. Ji Ling has continually sabotaged the armies, and they were none the wiser. Dong Zhuo liked Ji Ling so much that Ji Ling led the army against me. But when it was time, he started a military revolt. The 3 enemy generals turned into 1 allied one. During my earlier attempt as Dong Zhuo, I completely ignored the spies mechanic. But Sun Tzu dedicates the entirety of the final chapter to spies for a reason. What enables the wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge, knowledge of the enemy's disposition and plans. Now, this foreknowledge cannot be elicited from spirits, it cannot be obtained inductively from experience, nor by any deductive calculation. Humans are hard to calculate. Even if you knew the enemy well, this knowledge would be risky at best to rely on. Knowledge of the enemy's dispositions can only be obtained from other men. Spies are the most important element in water because on them depends an army's ability to move. It's important to adapt your movements to the enemies. To know how is to use spies. Reduce the hostile chiefs by inflicting damage on them, specifically by enticing away the enemy's best and wisest men. Introduce traitors into his country, sow dissent between ruler and minister, corrupt his morals with insidious gifts, disturb his mind with lovely women. This is a short version of what Xia Lin says, one of the commentators. This was my chance. The Wu garrison had not yet recovered from the previous siege. I strike again. Dongzhuo has more armies than this. If one of his armies reinforces the pass, it will be uncrossable. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Once war is declared, he will not waste precious time in waiting for reinforcements or fresh supplies. All great strategists like Napoleon and Julius Caesar have always valued being a little bit ahead of your opponent more than numerical superiority. If fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight, even though the ruler forbid it. If fighting will not result in victory, then you must not fight, even at the ruler's bidding. Note the language, you must fight. You cannot afford to pass up on advantages.
The attack! The gates are destroyed!
The Northern Army is just enough to win against the depleted garrison of the Wu Pass. I reinforced Jiling's army into a full stack. The capital of Chang'an is right there. If I capture it, the Han Empire remnants will be under my control. After my army is ready, I march for the Emperor. They call him the warrior worth 1,000. Soon, I will put that title to the test. My generals questioned my plan to attack the Wu Pass. Very well, we must answer the questions fairly and firmly. The last thing I desire is to allow my generals to be disgruntled. Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death. Firstly, why am I going straight for the capital of Chang'an instead of going for the Tong Pass? Why ignore it? It could put Hongnong at risk. Hongnong is only important as a staging ground for my assault against the capital. It would also cost extra turns to travel there, siege, and recuperate the men. That is, if we succeed. Remember the last time we attempted to siege a well-garrisoned pass? There are roads which must not be followed, armies which must not be attacked, towns which must not be besieged, positions which must not be contested. If the benefit is not to your favor, don't do it. Those with an inflexible mindset of, oh, I'll just lock in and win, or I'll just try harder, is not only short-sighted, but risky. There's actually a story of how Cao Cao ignored the fortified city of Huapi and instead simply moved past it, conquering 14 important district cities despite people saying she should conquer it. It is a great mistake to waste men in taking a town when the same expenditure of soldiers will gain a province. We could have gone around the Wu Pass, conquered the towns along the way. Perhaps we could, but we would be sharing borders with new and unpredictable warlords. That would leave our western lands exposed to a potential counterattack. And remember, rapidity is the essence of war. It would have taken far too long. Sieging a pass was not ideal, but with Jiling's army arriving, it was an opportune moment to strike. While heeding the profit of my counsel, avail yourself also of any helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules. According as circumstances are favorable, one should modify one's plans. Why did we not stay longer in Hongnong with the Northern Army so that they replenish more men? It is true that Jiling could have been ordered to commit a military revolt later, but this would have made us stay isolated in a place Dongzhuo has the greater advantage in. Time is not on our side, neither is how far we are from our own lands. When in difficult country, do not encamp. In country where high roads intersect, join hands with your allies. Do not linger in dangerously isolated positions. I broke this rule as my first run as Dongzhuo because I had Liu Bei stay for so long in an isolated position, it allowed Cao Cao to essentially mount a counterattack at his time of choice. My generals are worried that sieging a fortified city in the presence of a nearby army is reckless at best. But no, I want Liu Bei to battle me. The northern army is made up of horsemen, excellent in open territory, but all that movement is nearly worthless when sieging a city. I want Liu Bei to come to me. I want him to rally the militia garrisoned inside the fortified city to come out and assist him. My pawns have mercilessly committed a handful of sabotaging routines against Liu Bei's army, poisoning their supplies, spreading rumors to affect morale, false scouting reports. Liu Bei's army has been crippled, but his arrogance is widely known. He will fight me, and he will know defeat. The northern army and the second army start to siege. Then Liu Bei arrives just as expected. 2 of my armies against 4 of Dongzhuo's. The cavalries between the 2 armies have met up quick enough, but the infantries will have to combine to make one larger army as well. Liu Bei, impatient as he is seeking me out immediately. I send my horse archers to whittle down his army before returning. The enemy cavalry gallop towards us, aiming to hunt us down. But when they get close enough, my own cavalry bursts forth from the forest and engages the enemy. Our armies clash together after them. While I lead the cavalry, Liu Bei has chosen to remain in his army. He wants to break my infantry. The infantry in any army of this era is the very backbone of it. If one breaks the infantry, the entire army folds, as no one could protect the archers or provide an anvil for the cavalry's hammer. My infantry are winded, but they now hold the higher ground than Liu Bei's infantry, and Liu Bei has not paid attention to the state of his men. They are completely exhausted from running uphill such a distance. On top of the sabotage I wrought upon them, they are unfit for battle. But even with all these advantages, Liu Bei is demolishing my men in the front line. I need to stop him if my army is going to battle the rest of the reinforcements. I order my men to demolish their archers, and I send a host of spearmen to distract Liu Bei. When Liu Bei's army flees, I turn my attention to him. He has done enough damage today. I lead the charge against Liu Bei while my footmen quickly reorganize. The past battle has not been kind to them, and the other half of the enemy army is coming. Liu Bei is down. My infantry struggle to hold the line. As exhausted as the cavalry and I were, victory is possible. I allow for a moment of rest for my horsemen before I declare the charge. But just like that, the rest of the enemies fold. Upon seeing their champion fall and sprinting up a mountain so carelessly, their spirits had already been broken. The day is ours. The clever combatant looks to the effect of combined energy and does not require too much from individuals. Hence, his ability to pick out the right men and utilize combined energy. Relying on the heroics of the few is not as good as the intelligent use of far more many men. A group of organized, good fighting men focused on the right spot can achieve great results. I capture Liu Bei. For whatever reason, he has chosen to remain loyal to Dongzhuo. Unfortunate. I would have liked to have him in my army, but his deeds are overrated. My army sieged the weakened forces of Chang'an. It is comical how easy it was. Their spirits were already broken. Breaking it again was child's play. The remnants of the Han Empire are mine. I promoted Jiling to my grand tutor. He was a key part in our victories here today. Hence, it is with none in the whole army are more intimate relations to be maintained than spies. None should be more liberally rewarded. In no other business should greater secrecy be preserved. Hence, the use of spies, of whom there are 5 classes: local spies, inward spies, converted spies, doomed spies, and surviving spies. Local spies are inhabitants of the enemy district. Inward spies are officials of the enemy. Converted spies are enemy spies that we turn into ours. Doomed spies refers to doing certain things openly to deceive the enemy spies for them to report. Surviving spies are those who bring back news from the enemy's camp. When these 5 kinds of spies are all at work, none can discover the secret system. This is called divine manipulation of the threads. It is the sovereign's most precious faculty. This victory was troubled with news. Lady Wu of the Sun faction, the most powerful faction in all of China, just vassalized Liu Bei, who was second only to her in power. This is fearful news. If Lady Wu decided I was a threat, I would be no match. It's imperative I remain in her good graces, at least for now. In the meanwhile, I assault the neighboring town of Lantian. Despite our men's hearts being full with victory, this was a painful battle. There were no walls and our men were better, yet the severe high ground and easy defensive positions made this one of the more difficult battles to win. How to make the best of both strong and weak? That is a question involving the proper use of ground. Less reliable troops, if posted in strong positions, will hold out as long as better troops in more exposed terrain. But luck has blessed me today. Dong Zhuo finally sued for peace. I desire to kill him personally, but he's one of ill health and old age. He will pass soon. I vassalize him without autonomy. When one day I decide that Dong Zhuo will no longer be of use to me, I will annex his lands into mine. The tea I boiled to celebrate this peace hadn't even gone cold yet before that damn Yuan Shao declared war on me. The emperor was moved to my capital of Suiyang, south of his lands. Like his brother that I had executed, he's an opportunist at heart. But there are benefits to holding the emperor. Through the emperor, Yuan Shao was declared enemy for all other warlords not already allied with him. My army engages in forced march. It is not long until they show up to the edges of his land. The rapidity of our march surprises Yuan Shao, who had barely made it into Suiyang's lands when my second army arrives to defend the capital. I extract my spy, Zhong, from the army and disband his retinue of soldiers. Yuan Shao will sorely be lacking his troops. I mount my attack. Yuan Shao has been a thorn in my side since the beginning. That ends today. We battle near the mountains. The slope in this battlefield is quite harsh, and I cannot see my enemy from here. I send out my cavalry to figure out Yuan Shao's whereabouts, while my infantry struggle to get to the high ground. But Yuan Shao is closer than expected, and the infantry are not in position yet. I order my cavalry to buy the infantry more time and engage early. This plan works. My infantry are in position and the armies clash. However, the heavy march I ordered them has taxed their stamina severely. A brutal melee ensues, but at least we did not have to fight against an enemy with such superior high ground. I had hoped to take all of Yuan Shao's lands, but not long after his son Yuan Tan becomes the new faction ruler, my western lands were in danger. Ma Tang, warlord of the west, and Zheng Jiang of the northwest together desired my lands. This is exactly why I have Dong Zhuo as my vassal, but he can't defend forever. I approached Yuan Shao with an offer. Temporary peace, in exchange for money, of course. He despised me, but he had no choice. His armies were in ruins. I disband my second army to create another one near where Ma Tang was invading. My northern army makes a forced march to the western territories before Ma Tang could cause too much trouble. However, he and his son Ma Chao have raised formidable armies. They held on the town of Meixian while my army waited in the former capital of Shang'an. Ma Tang's army has suddenly disappeared, but I know what this is. He's trying to ambush me. Tao Qian used the same tactic against me, and I swore I'd never fall for that again. Instead, I marched the northern army around where he'd ambush and attacked Ma Chao directly. When I defeat Ma Chao, Ma Tang will be stuck between my two armies. If he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is in superior strength, evade him. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak so that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Attack him when he is unprepared. Appear when you are not expected. I will admit one thing. Ma Chao valiantly held on to this settlement. Despite being greatly outnumbered, his men were not easy to rout. I lost more men than I had expected, as he continued to defend all of his choke points well. Ma Tang's army encamped after, allowing both armies to strike at him. He attempted to hold a defensive position from all sides, but that way he was completely surrounded by my superior forces. There can be no escape. Ma Tang survived our encounter. After defeating him so thoroughly, I made him a vassal with no autonomy. The same fate that I consigned to Dong Zhuo. With both of them as my western vassals, I could safely retire from the western front. Now that leaves Zheng Jiang, who has been warring with Dong Zhuo in the north. In fact, he died battling her. He dreamed of an empire, instead died to some bandit. It's exactly what he deserves. I heard rumors of a talented administrator and strategist. I send him an invitation, for I am always in the need of competence. Speaking of competence, Lady Wu handed the power to the heir, Sun Quan. They call him the Emerald-Eyed Administrator. This will only strengthen the already most powerful kingdom. I must devise a plan if I am to stand a chance if we were to war. Sima Yi, a legendary strategist, joins my generals. I will get to test his genius soon. Zhang Jian and I have peace, but I need her lands in order to grow. There are no other factions that are not vassals of Sun Quan's massive kingdom. I will attack Zhang Jiang when my armies are in place. Even if she had not declared war on me earlier, I would have done the honors. The shallow waters here slow down armies. Combined with my archers, superior in numbers and skill, it would be her army forced to struggle through the mud to get to mine. Worse, she tried to send spearmen to chase my cavalry in this environment. She had no advantages, and yet she gave many disadvantages. They call her the Bandit Queen, and that's all she'll ever be. In stark contrast to Ma Chao, I was impressed with his defense against me. Although I had to resort to kidnapping via spy to get him to hear me out, he finally realized that I was the only way he could become something greater. I promised him a promotion soon, and he seems satisfied enough. Ma Chao proved himself well. It's not long before Zhang Jian's lands are mine. There are 5 ways of attacking with fire. The first is to burn the soldiers in their camp. The second is to burn the stores. The third is to burn baggage trains. The fourth is to burn arsenals and magazines. The fifth is to hurl dropping fire amongst the enemy. I had conquered the northern lands. Then I hired Zhang Jiang right after I took everything that mattered to her. The things that one could get away with by throwing someone a pizza party every so often. I am now the 3rd most powerful faction in all of China. 3 people had the claim to become the next emperor. The Kingdom of Wei, led by yours truly. The Kingdom of Song, led by Sun Quan. And the Kingdom of Shu Han, led by Liu Bei. But the heavens continued to sully my victory. Xiahao Dun was with me since the beginning, while Ji Ling was a spy who was key in our victory against Dong Zhuo. 2 of some of my greatest generals died of age. That reminds me that I too am vulnerable to the inevitable. If I am to be the Emperor of China, I must be faster. But how can I when Liu Bei and Sun Quan are vassal and master? Fighting even one of them would be difficult. Fighting both on top of that many vassals under Sun Quan would be so foolish, it would be what I am known for in history. The red flags here are the territories under the Kingdom of Wu, ruled by Sun Quan. As you can see, the entire center and south of China is his. The tribal warriors rule the southwest. The yellow flags are Liu Bei, who controls the entire center line and is one of many vassals under Sun Quan. The flag of gold and blue is mine. I control the north and northwest with a handful of vassals. After several turns of agonizing, I finally came up with a plan. I will support the autonomy of Liu Bei. This means I will declare war on a vassal's master if the master declares war on a vassal that declares independence. If Liu Bei declares independence, that will be enough for me to defeat all of Sun Quan's other vassals. I will spend some time building up my war chest. Once I war with Sun Quan's factions, there will be no more peace until one of us leads China into a new dynasty. And so, Cao Cao waited. His war chest grew stronger than ever, ready for a protracted conflict. It was almost time to offer Liu Bei the support of independence. In a few days, it would be Cao Cao's birthday. Cao Cao drinks his tea, relaxed. Just 1 more year, and his war chest would have enough money to support 5 elite armies for years to come. Cao Cao never saw that year. Cao Cao fell ill, but he couldn't die here. He had so much to do. He had yet to destroy Tao Qin's faction after Tao Qin killed his father. He had yet to destroy Yuan Shao's faction. He had yet to become emperor. On his deathbed, he had a dream. He held a sword, battling Sun Quan in his imperial palace for the right to start the next dynasty. But like his life, his dream too would fade. He passed away at the age of 65. Real quick, if you come to enjoy the video, please consider giving a like and subscribe to help push the video through YouTube's algorithmic spaghetti. If you don't know what to comment, just type me a heart and I'll give you one in return. We've also got exclusive videos in Patreon and YouTube memberships if you're interested. Now back to the video. Real talk for a moment. Using Art of War teachings was really fun, and after studying it, I rarely lost battles, save for losing a random town to a sudden war. But as the ambition to become emperor marched closer, so did the deaths. Every character I recognized was eventually replaced by generic NPCs, partially because I executed so many generals. I didn't want them coming back with another army. Sure, I did it in the name of victory, but damn, it honestly felt really lonely. Speaking of, what the hell is Three Kingdoms anyway? So, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a novel written in the 14th century by Luo Gongzong, 1100 years after the actual events it romanticized. It's known as one of the 4 great masterpieces. You probably don't know about the plum in the golden vase or the water margin, and honestly, neither do I, but you probably kinda sorta do know Journey to the West. It's these guys. Son Goku is the Japanese name for Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. Anyways, back to the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. You might think it's a love story because of the name, but honestly, there's basically one prevalent love story, and it's apparently a really minor part of the whole thing. This whole thing. Yep, it's a really long novel. It's romanticizing a historical event, hence the name Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Speaking of, a love story between whom? Yep, our old friend Liu Bei and a servant girl named Dao Shan. So Dao Shan's adoptive father, Wang Yun, feared Dong Zhuo's growing power. So he manipulates Dong Zhuo and Liu Bei by driving a wedge between them both, by using his daughter, Dao Shan. Dao Shan is an exceptional beauty. In fact, in Chinese storytelling, she is named one of the 4 great beauties of ancient China. Wang Yun promised both Liu Bei and Dong Zhuo her hand in that order. Dong Zhuo took her as his concubine immediately. This was the anvil that broke the camel's back, as Liu Bei was already dissatisfied with Dong Zhuo. You see, he threw an axe at Liu Bei when he was really angry. This leads Liu Bei to assassinate Dong Zhuo. Anyways, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is often described as Chinese Game of Thrones, and essentially, yeah. Except it's actually finished, unlike Game of Thrones. A sprawling epic with countless characters, ambitions, alliances, betrayal, strategy, all of it. It's historical fiction rather than high fantasy like Game of Thrones. Did I mention death? Lots of it. In fact, canonically, none of the characters in the entirety of Cao Cao's campaign actually win it and establish the full dynasty. Wait, what? So, who wins? Yep, that's the legendary strategist Sima Yi, the one in my Cao Cao campaign. Only, like I said, he doesn't win either. His sons and clan do, finally establishing peace and order with the Jin dynasty. Only for them to mess it up all over again. Funny enough, it's more like the story of 100 kingdoms for most of it. By the time it becomes 3 kingdoms, a good majority of the characters have perished already. Like our good friend Liu Bei, who was captured by Cao Cao and executed. Huh. Honestly, I did not know I was being canonically accurate. The 3 kingdoms are Liu Bei's, Cao Cao, and Sun Quan's. Whoa. Another point for accuracy. But essentially, Sima Yi's sons and clan take over Cao Pi's kingdom, then Liu Bei's, then Sun Quan's. So the fact that I mentioned how just about everyone died and got replaced is just like how it is in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The entire story tells of the tragic and cyclical nature of dynasties we touched on earlier. Starts with the fall of a dynasty, a bloody civil war, a new dynasty is formed, everything is better, gets worse, fall of a dynasty, rinse and repeat. I wanted to do just one more run. This time, I wanted to have my faction leader become emperor, not their heir or anything like that. While I was searching for another faction leader to play, there was one guy I was curious about, Liu Bei. In both runs I did, he was consistently quite powerful. He never declared war on me, and thus, I never had to fight him. But from what I understand, in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Cao Cao actually plays the villain role, while Liu Bei plays the more protagonist-like role. I did some research on him, and he was described as a Confucian-style hero. Speaking of, the book I have has the Confucian Analects. I'm gonna have to read this, huh? Confucius translates to master or teacher Kong. Born as Kong Chu, he existed around 551 BC to 479 BC. That means he was alive the same time Sun Tzu was. Thus, he also lived through the brutal spring and autumn period. Confucius taught anyone, regardless of background. Though he gained some prominence with minor lords, the advent of Qi Shi Huang's Qin dynasty quickly scattered any momentum his philosophy had. Emperor Qi Shi Huang instead adopted legalism, characterized by strict laws and harsh punishments. Confucius never saw his beliefs adopted by a major state in his life. But after the Qin dynasty's impactful but brief period, it gave way to the Han dynasty. Yep, that very same Han dynasty in the game. Eventually, Emperor Wu of Han adopted Confucianism as the official state ideology. When someone mentions Confucius, all I can think about is the obsession with the word hierarchy. Obey your parents and elders, even if they are being gargantuan pieces of shit. But when I read the damn book, I realized there was way more to it. So quick disclaimer, this book is not actually written by Confucius. The Analects are written by his students who recorded their interactions with the teacher. The Analects can be broken into 4 terms: virtue, filial piety, rituals, and heaven. Virtue meant being respectful, honest, reverent, generous, committed to learning, self-cultivating, humble, and dedicated to helping society. To be able to practice 5 things everywhere under heaven constitutes perfect virtue: gravity, generosity of soul, sincerity, earnestness, and kindness. If you are grave, you will not be treated with disrespect. If you are generous, you will win all. If you are sincere, people will repose trust in you. If you are earnest, you will accomplish much. If you are kind, this will enable you to employ the services of others. This was all in the name of becoming Junsi, which can be translated as ideal person, gentleman, noble person, superior man, etc. Anyone, regardless of class, could become Junsi, but no one was born one. One had to become it. By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. The mind of the superior man is conversant with righteousness. The mind of the mean man is conversant with gain. Virtue was to be in every breath, every action, especially small ones like the tone of your voice, your posture, and the way you greeted people. For every action was a building block to become Junsi. When he was in the prince's ancestral temple or in the court, he spoke minutely on every point, but cautiously. Being virtuous meant attracting like-minded individuals and setting example for others to follow. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. Filial piety is the virtue of respect, obedience, and care for one's parents and elders. Filial piety and fraternal submission, are they not the root of all benevolent actions? You see, Confucius believed that if you were virtuous, especially with family, you'd make a building block for a good society since you'd extend this to others. A youth, when at home, should be filial, and abroad, respectful to his elders. He should be earnest and truthful. He should overflow in love to all, and cultivate the friendship of the good. When he has time and opportunity, after the performances of these things, he should employ them in polite studies. This also meant pursuing a government role to serve society, but holding an office isn't a mandatory part, as Confucius was a firm believer that you should never compromise your ideals for office or personal gain. A superior man takes office and performs the righteous duties belonging to it. What is called a great minister is one who serves his prince according to what is right, and when he finds he cannot do so, retires. Society thrives when everybody performs their proper role. Every man should mind their own business. He who is not in any particular office has nothing to do with plans for the administration of its duties. Now, how do rituals come into all this? Well, Confucius was a believer that anyone could become virtuous. It just required practice, or more specifically, self-cultivation. If a man be without the virtues proper to humanity, what has he to do with the rights of propriety? If a man be without the virtues proper to humanity, what has he to do with music? Rituals included traditions and music, which Confucius said should be carried out with reverence. You see, not only was it a way to practice virtue, teach people how to behave properly, and assist social harmony, but it was also a link between heaven and earth. It was essentially a form of worship in Confucius's eyes. Which leads us into heaven. Confucius wasn't a religious leader. Interestingly, although Confucius doesn't seem to not believe in spirits and such, rather, he put those aside for his own form of worship, which was being virtuous. If you do not understand the will of heaven, you will have no way to become a gentleman. If you do not understand ritual, you will have nowhere to take your stand. If you do not understand words, you will have no way to know people. By being virtuous, by carrying out rituals, one was aligning themselves with heaven's will. One of the stories described when Confucius was sick, one of his disciples asked to pray for him. Confucius says it was unnecessary, as he had been praying for a long time already, through his conduct and virtue. In his eyes, the virtuous need not fear anything. The superior man has neither anxiety nor fear. When internal examination discovers nothing wrong, what is there to be anxious about? What is there to fear? Now, The fixation on hierarchy is the part that most people know Confucius for. Obedience to older people, no matter their conduct. But I was genuinely surprised to hear that there is a massive caveat that I feel like many Asian parents and elders forget, is that Confucius specifically states that the older person demanding obedience is supposed to be virtuous. He even says you should resist your parents or elders if they are not being virtuous, albeit he says to do it in a more subdued manner. In serving his parents, a son may remonstrate with them, but gently. When he sees that they do not incline to follow his advice, he shows an increased degree of reverence but does not abandon his purpose. And should they punish him, he does not allow himself to murmur. This extends to government offices too, stating that it is a ruler or minister's job to be virtuous, to set an example. If the ruler or minister cannot achieve this, they should retire. No compromising virtue. He was also against ministers abusing their positions for personal gain. I have no pleasure in being a prince, but only in that no one can offer any opposition to what I say. With this quote, I believe that Confucius actively believed against unchecked power. The head of the Qi family was richer than the Duke of Cao had been, and yet Cao collected his imposts for him and increased his wealth. The master said, "He is no disciple of mine. My little children beat the drum and assail him." Okay, that last line is kind of wild, but that part's a joke. The point is that he believed that the hierarchy should be strict, but with the condition that the people above being virtuous. He was a big advocate against people in power abusing their positions, in this case with taxes. Don't get me wrong though, the reason why many Asian children have issues with their parents is probably this guy. Plus, plenty of stuff he says has not aged well. In particular, his 2 quotes that mention women in any capacity. Of all people, girls and servants are the most difficult to behave to. If you are familiar with them, they lose their humility. If you maintain a reserve towards them, they are discontented. The second quote is when Confucius examines the king of Wu, boasting that he has twice the amount of amazing ministers than the other guy. 10 of them! Confucius then says, "Yet there is a woman among them. The able ministers were no more than 9 men." Is that a boom I see? This is also hilarious, but he complains, "I have not seen one who loves virtue as he loves beauty." He includes himself, I think, so maybe he'd be into Gunnar Gacha games if he lived in the modern era. I'd also like to mention that like a good 10th of this book is just Confucius praising his students, and I feel like the students who remember are the authors of this book are just glazing themselves. Never flagging when I set forth anything to him. Ah, that is Hui. Alas, I saw his constant advance. I never saw him stop his progress. You know what Confucius said about me? What? He said I never stopped learning. And you know what Confucius said about me? What? He said that I never give up. But my point is, I was surprised to find... my point is, I was surprised to find that this fixation on hierarchy at least has some thought put into it. Real talk, you'll find that most philosophers from the past were very much products of their time. So absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. Which is not just a Bruce Lee quote, but a Confucian one, funny enough. When I walk along with 2 others, they may serve me as my teachers. I will select the good qualities and follow them, their bad qualities and avoid them. Back to Liu Bei, there's actually one really cool thing I noticed. Every faction leader in Total War 3 Kingdoms has a trailer dedicated to them, each with their unique soundtrack that is based on Chinese lyrics and poems. During each of their trailers, they tell you exactly what they're about. Except Liu Bei. Not only is the length of his trailer half the size of the other characters, but he doesn't say a word in it. Which initially makes little sense, as I said before. Liu Bei plays a protagonist role in the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. But when I watched it, I realized this trailer is Confucius in nature. Confucius says the following: "The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions." Liu Bei shows you what he's about. Defending the people at the risk of death, gaining strength through friends, revealing the superficial nature of appearance in the face of virtue. All very Confucian ideals. I thought this was really cool, and I want to applaud Creative Assembly for being so attentive to detail. So, to the game. How can we apply the Confucian Analects to my playthrough as Liu Bei? Here are 10 rules I will follow that I thought were good ways of trying to use the best of Confucian values in-game. 1. If we capture enemy generals, we will never execute them. Confucius was a believer in that anyone could turn a new leaf, especially in the presence of a junzi. 2. If one of our generals die in battle, we will hold a ritual. no attack or movement is to be made on the turn after the death to mourn the loss of a hero. The only exception to this is if we have to move to defend a town or a city. If I do that, I have to do the ritual after the battles are done. 3. We will give offices of power to people who are virtuous. This means I will deny official positions to even the most powerful of generals and the closest of family if they are not fit for the role. No negative traits like cruel are allowed for people in office. Rerolling negative traits into positive traits is possible in the game, and that's fine. That means they became Junsi. 4. Spies will only be used to verify threats. This means no military revolts, poisoning supplies, leader assassinations, etc. Confucius probably would have seen the extensive use of spy sabotage as eroding a ruler's virtue and legitimacy. 5. We will defend a town or city even if our army is no match for the attacker. The virtuous don't leave people to fend for themselves. Even if it's not the pragmatic decision, it is what heaven desires. 6. We'll always prioritize public order and infrastructure over military upgrades. Confucius saw the welfare of the people as a foundation for a ruler's legitimacy. A virtuous ruler would 100% put the people's stability over personal ambition. Fittingly, building Confucian temples increases public order, which makes rebellions less likely. With reforms, which is an upgrade I get to my faction every 5 turns, I'll complete the yellow tree of civil services first. Only then will I go into other reforms. Number 7, we will always keep our promises. That means never breaking diplomatic agreements, even if it would be advantageous to do so. Number 8, taxation will always be set at normal. Even if our public order is maxed out and we could safely raise taxes with no issue, we won't. Confucius condemned such abuses of power. 9, we will never raise or sack a conquered settlement. During my Cao Cao run, I did sack a few times when I needed the coins, but we don't do that here. Number 10, finally, we will never engage in war for personal gain. We will only declare war to defend our allies, retaliate for betrayal, or to secure peace against a proven aggressor. We'll try to utilize Art of War, of course. We're not abandoning pragmatic strategy here, but we are putting idealism over pragmatism in this run. We'll also turn on Timeless mode. This is so that everyone doesn't die of old age, and we'll also be playing on Romance mode. Essentially, it makes generals a lot more powerful and allows for 1v1 duels between them. Instead of having a bunch of bodyguards, generals are now absolute units with special abilities and stuff. They are more likely to be wounded than die outright. Often the only way to kill a general is execution after capture. If they are not captured, they escape back to our faction. So when you see a character die on screen, they don't actually die until you see the gravestone. Finally, we're cranking up the difficulty from very hard to legendary. This change affects many things, including making our own units route much faster, enemy units are more resilient to routing, no radar map, limited camera movement depending on the character's POV, no orders while pausing, and only one save file, which honestly I haven't been utilizing anyway, reduced visibility of enemy units, less enemy tooltips so we can't tell how tired they are and etc., reducing our faction's income and public order, which is needed to prevent rebellions. Enemies will field stronger armies at lower cost. Enemies will also declare war and attack way more aggressively. And finally, enemy generals will utilize more aggressive tactics in battle. Bring it on.
Ah, a new opponent. Let us begin.
Unlike other factions, Liu Bei's does not actually start out with any land, just a small army of militia and its 2 oath-sworn brothers, Guan Yu and Zhang Fei. The campaign starts once more. We engage the Yellow Turban Rebellion near us and siege their town. Zhang Fei and Guan Yu, along with 2 retinues of saber cavalry, hide in the forest until the infantry have engaged, allowing them to hit the vulnerable enemy archers and flank the enemy. We battle against the rebellion leader Huang Shao for his territory. The victory was Pyrrhic. It taught me that militia, although very affordable under my command, rout too quickly during combat. We need to send them home to their families and use professional troops instead when given the chance. We hold a few territories now. Yuan Shao's lands are north of the river. We sign a non-aggression pact early with him, in hopes of deterring his opportunistic ways. But our hopes of building up infrastructure before the inevitable wars were dashed. Tao Qin of the west is in peril. One of his treacherous officers killed Cao Cao's father, Cao Song. Now Cao Cao is on a vengeful crusade against him. He asked me for support, but this would mean warring with a major faction leader right off the bat. If Cao Cao takes over Tao Qin's lands, we could be in peril. We accept, but we cannot help him just yet. Our infrastructure lacks the ability to financially support proper troops. We traveled south of our lands to Han Empire remnants. I don't have the scheming ability of Cao Cao, only my words. Thus, my mechanic, Unity, gains points for every satisfied general. I could use these points to take over the Han Empire remnants without a fight. The more Unity points I have, the better my lands benefit. We successfully swapped some of my troops for professionals and continue annexing the Han Empire remnants when we hear the news. Tao Qian had died fighting Cao Cao. In his last breath, he gives us responsibility over his lands. Suddenly, we had nearly triple the territory under us. Our faction approached Cao Cao directly, trying to sue for peace, but he would not listen to reason. Even worse, Cao Cao had Yuan Shao join his war against me. That Yuan Shao never backs down from an opportunity to conquer someone's lands. We quickly march west. Cao Cao brings a fully professional army and has already started his war path. The situation is terrible, so much so that Dong Zhuo tried to approach us, promising protection in exchange for our vassalage and our money.
The fate of your people depends on this.
We aren't foolish enough to think that he would ever defend us in our time of need, so we quickly deny him.
It is your choice.
Cao Cao takes over his first town from us. The militia flee at the mere sight of his army.
Our men are running!
While Cao Cao marches from the west, Yuan Shao conquers us from the north. We only have enough money to barely support one army. Now the question remains, do we go west and face Cao Cao, or do we march north and stop Yuan Shao? Yuan Shao brought 2 armies, so we decide to march against him before he decides to conquer with them separately. A risky maneuver, but we decide to allow his 2 armies to engage us. Our enemies may be superior in number, but we have the will of heaven on our side. We have 6 retinue of mounted militia cavalry. Although they are not nearly as capable as Azilian cavalry, they are faster. We have 6 retinue of spear guards. They will not win battles, but they are excellent at holding their ground. Finally, we have 6 Yi archers and marksmen, my unique units. They are excellent bowmen who could fire while on the move. While Yuan Shao's 2 armies combine, we quickly march to the high ground and take defensive positions. Yuan Shao sends his 2 cavalry to scout us, but our cavalry manage to catch him and rout them. While the rest of his cavalry attempt to reinforce, we retreat into the safety of our infantry. Our infantries clash upon the battlefield. Yan Liang, a powerful general under Yuan Shao, challenges Guan Yu to a duel. We are outnumbered, so taking down one of their generals in an honorable duel will increase the morale of our troops while decreasing theirs. We must take that risk. We must have faith in Guan Yu. Guan Yu takes a powerful blow from Yan Liang. If Guan Yu falls, so do the rest of us. Guan Yu manages to turn the tables by fighting reactively, carefully wounding Yan Liang and exhausting him. Then, in a single strike, Guan Yu fells his opponent. But the battle is not yet over. Zhang Fei has his mounted men charge at their archers, taking them out of the fight. The front lines of the 2 armies have all but crumbled. This is now a battle between heroes, archers, and horsemen. The Yi archers excellently maintain their distance from the enemy infantry, causing Yuan Shao's army to fall apart into complete disorder. By doing this, they also buy us precious time to group up. Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and I group up to slowly dismantle their units. Zhang Fei is challenged to a duel by an enemy general. But while I battled Yuan Shao, I was taken down. In a fit of rage, Guan Yu and Zhang Fei tear apart the remaining enemy, winning us the battle. I am lucky to be alive. My brothers insist that I need to take more care. We captured Yan Liang and another one of Yuan Shao's generals. We spare them to follow our oath. A legendary general named Zhao Yun joins us. An auspicious day indeed. More friends of good character are always welcome. Though we push back Yuan Shao's well-armed horde, Cao Cao conquers yet another one of our territories. Although Yuan Shao initially turned down my offer for peace, soon he offered it back to us.
You have shown great wisdom.
We will not forgive what he has done to our people, but we need this peace to focus on Cao Cao. We accept and march west. Cao Cao had nearly conquered all of what was once Tao Qian's lands. We will take them back. Like Yuan Shao, he has brought 2 armies with him, but by now our troops have been replenished with men and supplies aplenty. We bait Cao Cao to attack me directly. His army is superior to mine in strength, and if he destroys us, nothing will stand in his way to conquer the rest of our territories. But the battle is a defense, meaning we can choose where to fight. And of this, we have no doubt our heroes are greater. Our army takes a position at an angle to face the enemy, but with the river on the right. The river will bog down infantry that attempt to go around. In the meanwhile, Zhang Fei and Guan Yu with 6 retinue of mountain militia hide in a forest beyond the river, in hopes of scoring a rout or two before returning to us. Cao Cao has 3 well-armored leopard cavalry scout us. Our Yi marksmen fire their arrows at them. We bait the enemy horsemen by shrinking the formation of the spear guard. The horsemen attempt to charge into the Yi archers, but the spear guard quickly swap back to their standard formation and engage the cavalry. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei's cavalry engage another group of their horsemen. After inflicting some damage, they come around and help the main army against Cao Cao's elite cavalry. Cao Cao's army clumsily attempts to cross the river, while their cavalry absorb the full might of our entire army. Lady Bian, Cao Cao's loyal wife, challenges me to a duel. I accept, in hopes that my victory will prevent further bloodshed with quicker routes. Cao Cao's army finally crosses the river, but this causes the rear end of his formation to lag behind his front. His frontal troops take arrow volley after arrow volley, only to be destroyed by the spear guard and cavalry. I was fortunate to have greater skill than Lady Bian. I defeat her and group up with my brothers. Together, once again, we dismantle the remaining troops. Cao Cao himself comes after me, furious at his wife's defeat. But luckily, he is more wounded than I am, allowing me to close out the duel. The remainder of his army retreats near his second army, holding position in a nearly conquered town. Our battle prior had gone very well, so we still had most of our men. We are still outnumbered, but Cao Cao's army is in no condition to fight properly, and the second army under Zhao Yuan was not fully stacked. Our plan had not changed. We need to get these invaders out of our lands. We had to haste, but there was exactly one high ground available to us. Zhang Fei and Guan Yu's cavalry buy us time by luring away some of their infantry and engaging their generals and cavalry. Their army made the mistake of making the weakened retinue of soldiers battle our troops. However, the spear guard are better at defending than attacking. It wasn't long before the rest of the enemy infantry joined us in the high ground. But our cavalry in the meanwhile were winning their battles. After we flanked their infantry with our horsemen, our Yi archers made short work of their weakened archers. With our high ground firmly at our hands and superior archers, the battle was already over. Cao Cao's advance had stopped. Cao Cao's fragmented army flees yet again. Impressed, or perhaps grateful for continuing to show mercy to prisoners of war, one of Cao Cao's right-hand generals, Zhao Haidun, joins our cause. We catch up to Cao Cao's remnants and take them down. What? In a surprising turn of events, Cao Cao's own wife, Lady Bian, was willing to work for me. On top of that, I gained Cao Cao's legendary horse, Shadowrunner. A truly auspicious day indeed. Yeah, I totally took his horse and wife. Now that Cao Cao's armies have been defeated, we begin retaking our rightful territories. However, Cao Cao did not take this lying down. Zhao Yun was caught spying on Cao Cao's lands and promptly executed. This shook me. I was suddenly far more cautious about sending scouts. Cao Cao wanted peace now, claiming he had lost too much. Isn't that the truth? As much as it pained us, we had to accept. Our money was running out, and it would not have lasted more than one turn. We took this time to trade with our neighbors, flourish our lands with infrastructure, Confucian temples, education, commerce, and plentiful food. We took in some more Han Empire territories east of us. For 24 turns, almost 5 in-game years, we had no wars. Our faction entered a coalition with Cao Cao, Yuan Shao, and Kong Rong. Despite our past histories, we hoped that this alliance would prove beneficial to all. The coffers grew gradually, all of our buildings were of good rank, and our people enjoyed peace and prosperity. But out of nowhere, one of Dong Zhuo's army appears, far east of where his lands are. It's not clear why he did this. Perhaps he thought we were that weak? But it's clear that we cannot have peace with him around. We raise our banners and fend off the rogue army with no issue. We signed military access agreements with our neighbors and marched through the Hulao Pass into Dong Zhuo's lands. The evil tyrant and warmonger Dong Zhuo approaches me. And then he offers to peacefully get unified into my lands. That monster... Wait, what? Yeah, I'll peacefully give all of my lands and armies to you. I have decided to turn a new leaf. Huh? Let me explain. My unity ability allows me to more easily confederate other people's lands into my own. But never could I have imagined in 1,000 dynasties that Dong Zhuo would readily accept giving me all of his lands. We, of course, accepted. His lands in general were now our own. This gave me the responsibility of taking care of the young emperor, making me prime regent. Even more surprising, Dong Zhuo now works for me as one of my generals. Also, this is the nicest Dong Zhuo ever. What do you mean cordial? Brave? Loyal? Like for reference, here are the traits he starts out with. Huh? Confucius did say virtue can inspire others, but I never thought it would have worked out this well. Just like with Tao Qian, we suddenly found ourselves the master of double, nay, triple the territories we had before. We unified a few minor lords, signed trade agreements and non-aggression pacts with my new neighbors, continued improving the quality of life in our lands. However, the bandit leader Yan refused to sign peace with me. He declared war on me, his lands far south. He is not an immediate threat, but he may have to be dealt with as his power grows, conquering the local lords. In the meanwhile, we make an army with Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, heading towards Yan's lands. We bait him out into an open field. It was a mistake to underestimate him. His troops are of good quality and capable of hiding in plain sight. His front line tears through ours, causing our men to rout. The Yi archers pepper the enemy with their volleys and fall back, buying us precious time to take out their archers and cavalry. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei's might, along with their horsemen, are able to rout even fresh retinues of spearmen. They take heavy losses, but the Yi archers exhaust the infantry and our cavalry runs circles around them. We take down their generals and take with us their hopes of victory. But it was a Pyrrhic victory. It made us realize our troops were not keeping up with everyone else's. We lacked the proper reforms to hire better troops than the ones we had. Not long after our victory, Cao Cao kicked us out of the coalition. It's clear he intends to invade us. We need to wrap up our business this far from our lands quickly. But not unexpectedly, Yuan Shao declares war on us.
A garden must be pruned of strangling weeds.
We quickly raise an army led by Dong Zhuo and Zhao Haidun to defend the capital where the young emperor resides. Okay, real talk, I'm not ever gonna get used to Dong Zhuo acting this nice and polite.
My lord, you requested me.
A character called Zhu Shu joined me, a competent strategist general. It was a pleasure to have him. But not even a turn after his recruitment, Zhu Shu gets an urgent message from his family. He has to leave permanently. We of course let him leave to tend to his family, but regretful of the circumstances, he tells us to seek the sleeping dragon. Excited, we send some messengers, hoping to recruit the legendary strategist. We approach the cottage of the master and knock on the door. His servant answers, but regrets that his master is not at home. Should you return another time, he may be in. We bade the servant a good day and vowed to return the next turn. Next turn, we return to the sleeping dragon's cottage for a second time. There, we meet his family, but not the elusive one himself. This is becoming frustrating, but worthwhile things should not be easy to be gained. Not to be deterred, we swallowed our pride and promised to return. Meanwhile, the army led by Dong Zhuo leads the strike against Yuan Shao, but I made the grave error of not sending scouts ahead. I think Zhao Yun's death scared me into losing many more generals this way. But this mistake came in the form of 3 armies crashing upon ours. As powerful as our heroes were, this did not look good. Using Dong Zhuo's guerrilla ability to start the battle deeper into the field than normal, he ambushes the reinforcements first with his retinue of cavalry. He could not allow their army to mass. Using hammer and anvil tactics, we crushed the unprepared enemy reinforcements. But 2 fully stacked armies led by their heroes come towards Dong Zhuo's army. They hold the high ground, but our trebuchets cannot move fast enough to be safely behind our infantry.
Look out! Enemy reinforcements are here!
Despite the high ground, the mounted militia's morale wavers, routing them. Eventually, the spear guards rout, and it's not long before the Yi archers fold as well. This terrible defeat was all my fault. But just as things looked bleak, we gained a blessing. We returned for a third time to the cottage of the sleeping dragon. This time, he is at home, but asleep. Determined to speak with him, we patiently waited for him to rise. Though at first he refuses, we managed to persuade him to the importance of his counsel. He finally agrees to help us. The sleeping dragon, Zhuge Liang, is one of the few legendary characters I know of that start at the high rank of 7, 10 being max. Liu Bei and Sima Yi are also like this. We now have yet another true hero among us, different from the regular Shafe. To prevent 3 of Yuan Shao's armies from barreling into my capital, we have a meeting with Yuan Shao. He refuses any peace, but we issue an imperial decree. As imperial regent who protects the emperor, this was a unique diplomacy tool we could use to help further convince someone. He relents and signs the peace, at least for now. Same with Yan, we signed a peace with him. The intention was to be ready for war once it came. We also signed a non-aggression pact with a powerful new warlord in the south, Sun Tzu. We signed a non-aggression pact with Cao Cao in hopes that would deter war on his end, at least until our coffers can finance one. But what caused worry was Cao Cao and Yuan Shao's coalition. They are some of the most powerful lords currently in China, and they both border my lands. We attempted to combine my lands with Kong Rong's or even join a coalition with them, but was only met with denial. Yan treacherously breaks the peace and declares war yet again. We quickly field an army with Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and myself in one, and the other led by Zhuge Liang, Dong Zhuo, and Zhao Haidun. Our intention was to destroy this enemy quickly before anyone bigger declared war on us. However, our biggest worry had been realized in the worst possible time. Yuan Shao and Cao Cao's coalition declare war against us. Not even a moment later, Cao Cao's legendary strategist Sima Yi attacks the town. The local militia try their best, but they were simply no match. Our two most powerful armies have already been dispatched in the south. Worse, Sun Ce breaks the non-aggression pact with us and declares war. Even Kong Rong, who became a vassal under Yuan Shao, declared war on us. We have enemies on all sides. Looking back, I made a terrible mistake here. I broke several of Confucius' teachings. Instead of redeploying my armies to defend my people, I focused too heavily on protecting the emperor in our capital. You see, I set up another army to protect the emperor from Yuan Shao. The plan was to allow Cao Cao to take our lands and then for us to retake them, while this army would hold the capital with their lives. Then we would continue to march north and destroy all of our enemies in one fell swoop. But this was a terrible move, as this meant allowing Cao Cao and Yuan Shao to conquer my lands with no resistance. In their time of need, I prioritized defending the emperor over defending the people. If there was any proof that we did not have the mandate of heaven, it was this. My armies marched north, conquering Cao Cao's lands on the way. But Sun Ce would slowly conquer anything I took. No one allowed me any respite or peace. But damn him, Yan Baihao actually got in our way. He catches up to Zhuge Liang's army and engages him. Zhuge Liang was an extremely capable general, but Yan was clever. Despite our army's superiority, it was a close victory with casualties aplenty due to Yan's ability to hide units in plain sight. Zhuge Liang's army sieges yet another enemy army, belonging to a minor warlord that had taken advantage of my precarious situation to declare war on me. He had his men fire arrows for 30 straight minutes, destroying their garrison before facing the exhausted army. Cao Cao continued to completely dominate my lands. The militia repeatedly over and over and over again were left with no heroes to defend them. They were too busy protecting the emperor. But when I sieged his capital, Cao Cao himself showed up to reinforce his army in the open battlefield. No proper high ground was reachable by the time they arrived to me, so I chose an open field. For vengeance against what he did to my people, I was all too eager to put his face in the dirt. His army was superior in number and quality, and I still used mounted militia as I had failed to put any reforms towards better shock cavalry. Only by the power of our brotherhood could we etch out a victory. I can only hope my brothers can win some duels. Zhang Fei and Guan Yu both engaged in duels against the enemy generals simultaneously. Cao Cao himself challenged Guan Yu. His arrogance knows no bounds. Guan Yu is called the god of war for a reason. Our spearmen struggled to hold the line while the Onyx Dragon archers continued to pepper the army and maintain their distance. Our cavalry did their best, but against Cao Cao's superior cavalry, they struggled. But in my time of need, my brothers delivered. Guan Yu defeated Cao Cao and Zhang Fei slew the enemy general simultaneously. This caused a morale shock twice to the enemy and gave new wind to our struggling troops. This also stripped the enemy of any heroes. With an exhausting push, my army defeated Cao Cao's too. We drove back their army and made an exhausting siege attack against Cao Cao's capital. But this was a mistake. Sima Yi and Cao Cao's son, Cao Pi, showed up with a fresh army. My army was exhausted. Whatever remained of our horsemen, led by our two tiger generals, quickly sought out to damage the reinforcements before they could join Sima Yi's massive army. Zhang Fei is challenged to a duel. I hesitated to allow it as Zhang Fei was somewhat wounded, but we had to take risks if we had any hope of winning this lopsided fight. Zhang Fei took a heavy blow from the enemy general. It seemed all hope for his victory was lost, but he struck a critical blow and managed to win. I saw Cao Cao on the field. I remembered so much of this was his fault and hastened my pace to attack him. Zhang Fei and Guan Yu were both injured, but they joined my fight against him anyway. However, it was Guan Yu this time who fell against Cao Cao. Enraged, we battled Cao Cao until he fled. Our troops are exhausted and at the cusp of routing. Our armies clash. I challenged Cao Pi into a duel. All too eager to avenge his father's defeats, Cao Pi accepts. I lack the combat prowess of my brothers, but I'm still a warrior. I sent Cao Pi running. And I think Cao Cao just fell to some random spearmen. But by the time that happens, Zhang Fei has to retreat due to his wounds. I held firm, but my Yi archers ran out of ammo and routed. It was just me. The enemy army was as endless as this field of snow. I knew it was pointless, but I kept fighting and fighting and fighting. Sima Yi came by to laugh at my efforts. In a burst of speed, I chased him down on foot. Unnerved, he attempts to escape on his horse, but I caught him, and in a few swift strikes, I defeated him. But alas, he had the last laugh, for my army was defeated. For every city Zhuge Liang conquered, Cao Cao and Yuan Shao conquered 2, and Sun Ce conquered another. This was not looking good. In the meanwhile, near my lands far west, Cao Cao's second group had appeared. Cao Cao's reach was farther than my worst estimates. I made 2 armies to engage the army led by Zhao Hai Yuan. Our generals were young and inexperienced, but I had hoped that superior numbers could tip the scales. Zhao Hai decided to attack us directly in an open field. His cavalry greatly damaged ours. Before our cavalry could do anything, our front line collapsed, and our forces routed. Not long after the battle, the general that helped scout ahead was executed. This should have called for a ritual, but during such desperate times, I dismissed the need for it. I thought it frivolous. The territories Cao Cao conquered were the lands that produced food. Now my people were starving. How could I have been so foolish? This was what I got for failing to protect my people. Out of desperation, I became Sun Ce's vassal in hopes that he could protect my remaining western lands against Cao Cao and Yuan Shao. The coffers ran empty, and I had to disperse the army that protected the emperor, essentially handing him over to Cao Cao, who immediately forced him to abdicate and put the rest of the Han Empire remnants under his control. Now all that remained, ironically, was Chang'an, which, if I may spout some humor in these dark times, is actually Dongzhuo's starting capital and where the young emperor was once held. This land is desolate, but it had a few defendable passes. I reflected upon what got me here. I went against heaven's will. I failed to commit to rituals when a general died. Chose not to protect my people against Cao Cao and Yuan Shao. I even tried to raise taxes on our last city in hopes that I could use it towards another army. I was no longer aligned with heaven's will, and paid the price dearly. Yuan Shao and Cao Cao were coming for me. My coffers are nearly empty, and hope for Sun Ce's protection was poor. My only boon was that my brothers were with me, and I was grateful enough for that. I swore that if I ever get another chance, I'd never fail to align myself with heaven, to follow the beliefs I had set for myself until the end. While Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and I were in the north protecting our lands against the general Yan Liang, the enemy armies come in droves. Dongzhuo, Zhao Haidun, and Zhuge Liang make a valiant effort, ambushing 2 of Cao Cao's armies at night to engage them separately. They came out victorious, beating not 1, but 2 entire armies in a row. But Cao Cao himself commanded a 3rd army that finished them off for good. I lost the final city of Chang'an shortly after. My brothers and I went bankrupt and let our soldiers go. Yan Liang marches a massive army against the 3 of us. I released various generals from my service, knowing this was the end. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei stood beside me as we faced the end together. This was merely one of several failed runs. In fact, this was the only time we made it beyond the early game. Difficulty aside, it's really all due to him, Cao Cao. Cao Cao constantly manipulated our enemies to declare war on us in our worst moments. Worse still, due to Yuan Shao's opportunistic nature, it's impossible to finish off Cao Cao without abandoning our undefended populace to Yuan Shao's fist. If we somehow avoided war with either of them, they'd form a coalition and attack simultaneously. Kong Rong was also a big threat, being directly east of our humble territories. He would constantly become a vassal for Yuan Shao and join his attacks against me. As Kong Rong is well liked by Yuan Shao and Cao Cao, declaring war on him early on would cause diplomatic waves that would still end in our defeat. It doesn't help that the rule stating that we cannot use reforms for military until we have completed all possible civil upgrades, that's this yellow tree, limits our cavalry to militia units for the entire early game. Meanwhile, as Dongzhuo and Cao Cao, we get the faction unique and powerful Zhiliang and Tiger Leopard cavalry right from the start, and the better heavy version soon after. During the Cao Cao playthrough, I focused early on the blue tree, which gave me access to the Onyx Dragons. Honestly, the best bow unit in the game. This tree also unlocks many spy slots and buffs, along with massive income boosts from trading. Liu Bei starts with no spy slots, and his unity mechanic provides an unreliable way to absorb smaller factions. In the meanwhile, Cao Cao's scheming mechanic allows him to gain diplomatic buffs constantly, a large selection of buffs and debuffs to armies, and more of the same, but for territories. But let's not be unfair to Liu Bei. There are two key advantages he has that we will need to leverage in order to be successful in our run. Liu Bei's Yi Archers and Yi Marksmen are his faction-unique units. Though they don't have the sheer firepower of the Onyx Dragons, they are significantly superior to the standard archer units, as not only can these units fire while running, but in comparison they have good morale and good melee. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, are Liu Bei's Oathsworn brothers, Guan Yu and Zhang Fei. Together with Liu Bei, they work together flawlessly when in the same army. It is true that Cao Cao also has a champion and Vanguard Oathsworn, just like Liu Bei does, the Zhaohai brothers Dun and Yuan. Not to disparage them, but Guan Yu and Zhang Fei are at another level. Zhang Fei is excellent at leading cavalry and just being an absolute unit. Guan Yu is an excellent champion that excels in one-on-one combat, taking out enemy generals with ease. Just to show you how great they are, here they are conquering a small city by themselves after their soldiers routed. But regardless, this won't be easy. But we won't give up. We have not one, but two ancient texts guiding us. Alright, let's try this again.
Though we do not share a name, I do most certainly call you brothers. For we shall live and fight and die as one.
Aye, through our actions, let us avenge the nation above and pacify the people below. There are many paths, but we walk the same one together.
Though we were not born on the same day, or the same month, or the same year, we hope to die upon the self-same day. And should our friendship waver, may heaven and the people both strike us down.
We start the campaign and we get 3 random items to give the generals. We get the classics of filial piety right off the bat. We sign a non-aggression pact with Kong Rong to gain some defense against the likelihood of Kong Rong attacking us. Experience has taught us that non-aggression pacts are not unbreakable, but they still do help. After we secured 3 territories for ourselves, the plan was to take over the Han Empire remnants southeast. But of course, again, Yuan Shao declares war. Worse, Tao Chen's event occurs now. This means merely at turn 8, we are at war with 2 of our most powerful neighbors. But Tao Chen's people needed help. One thing I realized I was doing in my previous ones was that I would simply use Tao Chen and his people as a shield to buy time for me to take over the Han Empire remnants, so I had greater economic power. This was out of fear that Kong Rong would take those lands first. That's not what we're about at all. And I did it back then without even thinking about it. No. This time, we'll help defend Tao Chen now. Yuan Shao still has to conquer the Yellow Turban land north of our capital before he could do anything. In the meanwhile, Cao Cao conquered Luxian. This might be a good time for an ambush. Cao Cao may be baited into attacking if our army is unseen. We'll move our army closer and take up ambush stance to become invisible. Cao Cao's army marches on the double to our capital of Puyang. Our ambush succeeds, but we still have to work to win this battle. Cao Cao's cavalry are better trained than ours, and we did not have the funds to have more than 2 unfilled retinues of mounted militia. But Cao Cao's army has not been fully replenished yet, and we have excellent Yi archers and the element of surprise on our side. Our shielded spearmen sandwich their troops. Zhang Fei, Guan Yu, and I lead the cavalry. 2 of our shielded spearmen retinue hold the line against the rest of Cao Cao's army. The key here is to rout the sandwiched army troops and join our main force. Guan Yu challenges Zhao Haidun to a duel. The latter accepts and they fight. Guan Yu comes out the greater warrior, and the ambushed enemy troops have routed. Our main force joins the spearmen into combat. Cao Cao's forces are in complete disorder. Cao Cao himself has gone mad with rage seeing his oath-sworn brother fall by Guan Yu's hand, causing him to attempt to engage all 3 of us in battle. Of course, this did not work out for him. In the meanwhile, the Yi archers skirmish with the enemy, distracting the dangerous cavalry and Cao Cao's crossbowmen while our generals destroy their infantry. Lady Beyond, in a desperate attempt to take one of us down, challenges Zhang Fei to a duel. This too does not work out for Cao Cao's wife. Their forces rout, and we have won the battle. But even with all these advantages to our benefit, it was still a Pyrrhic victory. We hunt down his remaining forces, Barely a turn later, Cao Cao starts up yet another army.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
We attempt another ambush, but this time, he does not fall for it. Our armies circle around this mountain back and forth, but since he is unable to replenish his troops in our territory, this gives our army precious time to replenish their retinues. We battle again. Although both our armies desired to fight defensively into higher ground, we had greater range power, so they were forced to march against our high ground. Another benefit of shielded spearmen is that they are far more resilient to routing when they are in spear wall formation. This combined with the high ground makes them as immovable as the mountain we are fighting next to. Zhang Fei is challenged by Zhao Haiyuan. Perhaps he's trying to regain the honor his brother has lost. While they duel, our troops absolutely pick apart the enemy. Zhang Fei and myself now have 6 full retinue of mounted militia. Combined with the hard-hitting volleys from our Yi archers and the immovable shields of our spearmen, they had no choice but to be defeated. Zhang Fei proves victorious over Zhao Haiyuan, and it wasn't even close. Cao Cao runs again. We employ one of Cao Cao's generals and finish off his army. Zhao Haiyuan perishes from the conflict. Returning to the map, we wondered why Yuan Shao did not attempt to march on our capital earlier. He certainly had the time while our army was battling Cao Cao for several turns. But the best guess is that Yuan Shao was somehow wrapped into several wars and is unable to focus on our faction, specifically with Gongsun Zan, who is a powerful warlord east of his lands. If you could recall, this was the same warlord we fought while we played as Dong Zhuo. This is most fortunate. Speak of the devil, Gongsun Zan approaches us. He wants to invite our faction into a coalition, which would make us allies. This would cost quite a few precious items and armor, but it would be worth it. Being in a coalition with such a powerful warlord that does not despise us would be a huge boon. But there's no time to celebrate. Delayed as he was, Yuan Shao finally arrived. He takes over Dongpingling with his professional army. We move our army towards him, our army mostly replenished. He could have his army march at us at this range, but that's the plan. Defense allows us to choose where to fight. Yuan Shao's army is lacking 2 retinues to be considered full, but his spearmen are of considerably greater quality than ours. The battlefield has no extreme high ground and plenty of trees, but we need to battle in a place without them, as forests offer natural range resistance against arrows. Their army has far more infantry, and we have more archers, so an open field where they can do their jobs is key, while our cavalries are about equal. We choose a high ground on a small hill that overlooks a vast open ground. Our cavalry meet their scouting horsemen. Yuan Shao and his vanguard general Yan Liang hang back with their infantry as they slowly march. Saber cavalry don't rout infantry nearly as easily as their red cavalry brothers, but they are excellent at standing their ground against most opponents, including our shock cavalry. Our mounted militia fail to cause any significant damage to them, and instead run directly past the enemy. The reason for this is that we need to buy time for our Yi archers to shower the enemy with arrows before our infantries engage, whilst dodging their saber cavalry that will make short work of our mounted militias. Yan Liang challenges Guan Yu to a duel, as he had heard Guan Yu had defeated Zhao Haidun. Guan Yu defeats Yan Liang in honorable combat, while Zhang Fei circles around the enemy and runs into the crossbowmen. Their infantry are completely disorganized, half of them chasing our cavalry, and the other half peppered with arrow fire and met with shield wall formations. Zhang Fei repeatedly charges into the saber cavalry, finally routing them. This allows the mounted militia to finally do what they do best, flanking the opponent. Professional spearmen or no, they rout all the same when they are smashed between shield and horse. Victory is ours. However, already the heavens test me. Yan Liang is our prisoner, and honestly, I wanted to execute him. In the past run I narrated, it was his army that dealt the final blow. And this was after we previously spared him. But that's not the way. We spare everyone we can.
I am not a cruel man. Forgiveness, no. Freedom, yes.
Victory was met with terrible news. Tao Qian had passed away. The hope was that if our armies defeated Cao Cao's early, Tao Qian would live at least a little bit longer. But we humbly accept his last wishes, and his 3 territories join our faction. We intend on retaking Donglingping from Yuan Shao, but that's Cao Cao's surely raising another army as we speak, and Yuan Shao is no different. But this time, we have a firm ally in Gongsun Zan. He is already mightier than Yuan Shao. We requested that he take over the town of Zhaoj, which was often used by Yuan Shao as a staging ground to attack our capital of Puyang. Next turn on cue, Cao Cao for the 3rd damn time marches into our lands. We retake Donglingping, but our armies are a few turns march away from Tao Qian's former lands. We must defend them. but we cannot have another army yet. And honestly, we cannot even afford another one, even if we had the slot for it. Gongsun Zan takes Zhouge and continues to march against Yuan Shao, while Cao Cao takes 2 territories. Our army can march further, but doing marching stance means that we cannot replenish our men. This is painful, but the right decision, as all will be for naught if we are defeated here. We take over a southern territory called Kaiyang from the Han Empire remnant, in hopes of using it as a staging ground against Cao Cao's inevitable march here. In order to raise more funds for possibly a second army if we are defeated, we offer peace to Yuan Shao in exchange for money every turn. Truth be told, Yuan Shao's destiny right now is in all likelihood to be destroyed by Gongsun Zan. But Yuan Shao doesn't know that we have no time to march against him, and offers us a decent sum. But suddenly, a warlord named Liu Chong declares war on us and attacks Dongling Ping. Worse, he had Kong Rong and another warlord named Liu Dai join. Despite our alliance with Gongsun Zan, this is looking extremely precarious. Cao Cao marches to Kaiyang. Our army was in hidden ambush stance, so Cao Cao likely thought we went to go face Liu Chong, but we were close by. We faced Cao Cao for the 4th time. A straight line battle with no particular high ground, but we had some extra militia on our side, and Cao Cao did not bring any legendary heroes this time. While the extra militia protect our archers against his cavalry, our army slowly picks them apart with the combined might of our heroes. Victory again. But Cao Cao's lands dwarfed our own, and he already had a second army. I felt so much regret for not being able to defend Tao Qian's lands as promised, and made the mistake of attacking Zhuxian. It was defended, but I had somehow hoped that I could bring out a victory. But our troops simply could not stomach another assault, and soon everyone was taken down. We managed to escape, but our army was destroyed. We quickly raised another one, but how we were going to survive the attacks from both Liu Chong and Cao Cao was beyond me. Gongsun Zan brings us another boon, however. He wanted to invite another minor warlord to our coalition. The larger our coalition was, the more fearful people are of declaring war against us. We agreed and brought in another ally. Liu Chong's army attempts to siege our capital of Poyang, but is scared off after we hastily march our new army to reinforce. Meanwhile, the young emperor becomes of age. Emperor Xian is still under Dongzhuo's control, but he still holds great influence. In particular, those favored by the emperor would gain boons sometimes, such as faster replenishment of our armies. Regardless, Hongrong offers peace. Expensive peace. But we have no choice and accept. If anyone comes after us in our last territory of Puyang, this run would be over. Surprisingly, however, the loss of all this land gave us an unexpected benefit. No one cared about us anymore. We were no longer a strategic threat to anybody. Thus, everyone focused on their wars with other greater warlords. We signed peace with Liu Chong's faction. At the very least, Cao Cao seemed to be attending to other matters as we signed an easy peace, and Yuan Shao is just as weak as we are now. There is one thing we can do. Annex the Han Empire remnants with my Unify ability. Kong Rong has luckily ignored these lands, and since we never took them and instead decided to defend Tao Qian early, they're up for the taking. The coalition does cause some worry though. Frivolously allowing people to join can cause enemies to vote our faction out and make us vulnerable. The coalition even tried to make Dongzhuo join us, but luckily, Gongsun Zan also disagreed with this terrible idea. Our goal right now is to raise money. The plan is currently to assault Kong Rong's territories. We cannot have peace with him as he always declares war with everyone else. Unlike everyone else, he's directly behind our lands. We have peace for now, but Kong Rong is our biggest threat currently to having only a single front to fight in. Kong Rong is constantly declares war at the most inopportune moments. He must be stopped. We traded some of our food and signed some peace deals that gave us funds. We took over 4 Han Empire remnants using my Unify ability. If we could take down Kong Rong, Liu Chong's one land here, and Liu Dai, we could gain a solid footing with only a single front. Gongsun Zan gives us a shield in the north. The sea protects the east and south. Then, we could take the fight to Cao Cao. This would be a huge boon as our one army limit is our biggest weakness right now.
Take up arms, for we come for you!
Yuan Shao declares war on our faction again. For some reason, he is in no position to declare war right now, especially since he just got his peace with Gongsun Zan. Speaking of Gongsun Zan, Yuan Shao just declared war on him too, since we're in the same coalition. Interesting choice. Regardless, he is of no threat to us. His army would have to march past Gongsun Zan's lands. Kong Rong offers a non-aggression pact, which we promptly denied. Breaking diplomatic agreements will be avoided when possible, so why make an agreement we will not follow? We annexed the final available territory, going from 1 city to 2 cities and 3 towns. This allows us to get a second army and boosts our income greatly. We immediately raise a militia army. Cao Cao approaches and tells us to become his vassals. Never. He cruelly took our lands. We will take them back in due time. General Zhao Yun joined our faction through a canon event once more, and we had to raise up a small army to support our attack against Kong Rong. Zhao Yun doesn't know this, but we are never ever sending him to scouting missions. We begin our invasion against Kong Rong. Kong Rong has always been an opportunistic one. For several campaign attempts, he would always attack my territories from the back where my armies were not. This was sweet justice. We declare war on Kong Rong and attack. This also causes us to declare war on Liu Dai and Liu Chong, who were Kong Rong's allies. We take over 2 of his territories and become second Marquis. We engage Liu Dai's army. Although normally a single army would have required some replenishment time after conquering a city and town, Zhao Yun's extra 6 retinue of soldiers greatly helped carry the burden. We push back Liu Dai's army. We continue taking back our lands, moving on to retake Dongpingling again. While traveling, we meet a young cowherd playing the flute. Intrigued, we speak with him. He takes us to his master, Water Mirror, an old hermit living in the mountains. Water Mirror says, if only you could find fledgling phoenix or sleeping dragon, you would be able to restore order to the empire. I'm sincerely hoping Zhu Liang's event starts soon. Gongsun Zan wanted to invite Cao Cao to the coalition. We voted a hard no. Luckily, it was enough to deny him. As our Zhao Yun-led army grows, we sent him to go recapture our territory in the north while our army ambushed Kong Rong's last forces. If this army dies, so does Kong Rong's faction. The ambush is successful and we conquer Kong Rong's last territory. Though we had intended on removing his faction entirely, Kong Rong sued for peace and offered us a decent sum of money and food. He must have saved it up. Regardless, there was no way Kong Rong would survive with such a weakened army and no land. We agreed to the peace for the coins. Our capital Puyang was conquered, making our faction's new capital Beihai, Kong Rong's former capital. Liu Chong has 2 half armies defending it. We will need the full might of our 2 armies if we are to stand a chance. But they split the army apart for whatever reason, allowing Zhao Yun's army to destroy it. Cao Cao approaches us yet again to see if we would like to be his vassal. This time his terms are even more ludicrous. One can only wonder if he just does this to mock us. Regardless, with the combined might of our 2 armies, we take back Puyang. Despite this, Kong Rong's former capital of Beihai will remain our capital, as it's farther from harm than Puyang. Liu Chong's faction begs for peace. We negotiate to our benefit. Liu Chong is likely extremely busy dealing with Gongsun Zan. The latter has been a stalwart ally. Let's hope it remains that way in the far future. We have to release some generals from our service regularly as their desire for a higher court position is apparent in some ambitious types. Though we took a hit in important manpower, we are following the Confucian ways. We do not give power to the non-virtuous and undeserving. We raised a 3rd army led by champion Wei Yan, who had recently joined us through another canon event. Our 3 armies were dedicated to destroying Cao Cao once and for all and regaining Tao Qin's former lands. Once advisor to the Wu forces, Pang Tong is well regarded as a man of great talent. The fledgling Phoenix was recently dismissed from his post and has joined us. A really good sign. Once we get Zhu Liang, we will not be wanting an excellent strategist for a long time, if ever. Speaking of, his event has started. Like last time, all we need to do is to visit his cottage for a few turns. We visit him on the first day, get turned away. Now we just have to... wait. Not sure what happened, but the cottage one day simply disappeared, I guess. The event never continued for some reason. Honestly, this was a huge blow for us. This event not giving our faction Zhu Liang made me think that this was a sign that this attempt too would be doomed to fail. But for the heck of it, let's try and see this run through. As we had to let go of a handful of generals due to their dissatisfaction from not being in court positions, we looked to hire more generals. Zhu Shu, the strategist that normally joins and leaves to start the Zhu Liang discovery, was simply found wandering in the job market. We never got the event to have him join our faction, then leave in this run. This was indeed confusing, since Zhu Shu in that event chain normally joined Cao Cao after leaving. The suspicion that Zhu Shu was Cao Cao's spy was admittingly significant. But perhaps recklessly, we decided to hire him. In the past attempt, Zhu Shu claimed he was no sleeping dragon. At rank 3 compared to Zhu Liang's 7, this is indeed true. However, what we need right now are heroes that are actually here with us, not the legends we wish we could have. Let's hope our trust is reciprocated. Sun Ce has become a massive powerhouse, already forming a duchy. He was one of the ones responsible for our failed attempt last time. It's clear that Gongsun Zan and Sun Ce will shape the map. In the meanwhile, we have to consolidate our power. We'll start with Cao Cao. Our 2 armies slowly march, invisible to the enemy. The 3rd army will attack from the southern side of the front. Cao Cao sends an army towards my lands, but it is ambushed and taken down swiftly. Our reforms have finally completed the yellow civil service tree. Confucius would be proud. we decide to focus lightly on red military upgrades in hopes of unlocking heavy cataphracts, a slow but well-armored and hard-hitting shock cavalry that'll prove as a hefty upgrade from the mounted militia. Hopefully, we will survive to see them fielded against our enemies. Cao Cao's second army approaches, this time not falling for the ambush, turning it into an open field battle. In Cao Cao's haste to field a second army against me, his army is clearly not replenished enough to fight. Our spearmen don't see too much combat as the archers simply volley the enemy to submission. The enemy general was also foolish enough to challenge Guan Yu to a duel. Greater men have tried and failed, so we don't have to tell you how that went. Cao Cao uses a scheme mechanic against us to slow us down, but no amount of schemes will stop us. It's time for vengeance for all the times he has struck. It's true that Cao Cao is not often the biggest enemy late into the campaign, but Cao Cao always knows where and when to hit our lands, especially where it hurts and is undefended. If we don't eliminate Cao Cao right now, he will surely continue this. Cao Cao has a son Cao Pi start up another army, one that has the legendary Sima Yi in it as well. Not going to lie, I sorely wish we had Zhu Jiang right now, but a miracle worker, Sima Yi is not. Zhao Yun's army had remained hidden this whole time. He reveals himself next to my army as we start the siege against Penchang, formerly Tao Qian's capital. Cao Cao is trying to buy time for his boat army to invade us. However, our economy has grown so handily that we are able to field a fourth army. By the time Cao Cao's boat army arrives, they'll have to siege a fully mustered army. There is no escape, Cao Cao. He even tries to join our coalition, but no one voted to accept. Cao Pi and Sima Yi have no choice but to leave the safety of their castle and engage both our armies in open combat. Otherwise, they'd suffer from attrition to their forces. Our armies join together to crash upon the enemy like a wave against it. What? Are they tripping on something? What's going on? Farmers are pushing them aside with a single swing? We should look into hiring them. Anyways, our numbers are just too great. Our 12 retinue of archers make short work of most of the enemy before they even get close. The rest are finished off by a dozen mounted militia, led by 3 of our generals. Sima Yi hopefully feels what I felt in the past run. We successfully took over another territory after, and Wei Yan... What? What on earth was that noise? He just said, "Though I rise, my heart remains with the people." Yeah, with that sound you made, I'm sure you have something that is rising, alright. Anyways, we rightfully regained Tao Qian's former lands and beyond, as we're now biting into Cao Cao's territories. These battles together have made my generals good friends. Virtue attracts the like-minded. You'll never believe this, but guess who just marched up to our lands? Kong Rong. He somehow did it. He somehow gained a territory somewhere, managed his finances, built up an army, and attacked me, who now has enough economy to fund 4 armies. He's quite iron-willed indeed, but perhaps his reputation as an excellent merchant were highly exaggerated. Despite outnumbering Kong Rong's army greatly, this battle did not go as desired. Though we had won, it was by a close margin because of just how quickly militia rout, especially in this difficulty. We need a professional army if we are to tackle greater enemies. Kong Rong has 2 territories west of ours. We may have to take him down if he continues his aggression. Though, interestingly, Kong Rong did not hate me. Quite the opposite. Our rule of releasing generals, no matter who they were, made Kong Rong extremely grateful, even if we were at war. We finally sieged Cao Cao's capital of Suyang. Their forces decide to attack ours before they could suffer attrition. It nearly went badly, as our militia kept routing and we had saber cavalry in this army instead of militia horsemen, meaning it was more difficult to rout the enemy. Yet another reminder for the need for better armies. But we did win. Cao Cao now has just 2 territories left. Turns out, Kong Rong was Dong Zhuo's vassal. The latter gives an ultimatum, to make peace with Kong Rong. We obviously don't like Dong Zhuo, but this decision would have been in Gongsun Zan's liking, and we have to be in his good graces if we don't want to be wiped off the map. We accept, albeit reluctantly. Our power grows, and we achieve the rank of Duke. We finally have access to spies, although remember, we can only verify threats with them. It seems the Sun faction is destined to always be strong. Sun Ce has already conquered a majority of the West and South. We need to get ready for the inevitable, that Sun Ce will unleash his full might. But perhaps we have nothing to worry about for now, as Sun Ce had actually joined our coalition by vote. Our coalition was easily the most powerful group in all of China. But one can, and one should, wonder, how long until it cracks? Extensive peace talks go through with various factions. But most surprising is that Gongsun Zan vassalizes Cao Cao, and peace talks are signed. Frustratingly, our goal of removing Cao Cao off the map was put to a complete halt. Cao Cao is now sure to grow and declare independence. But I digress. It's now peacetime. We could finally put down our arms and focus on tackling education, hunger, and
cannot
you
hope to
son of a
stand
bitch. Strangely enough, no one wanted to war with Yuan Shao in our coalition. We may have laid down our arms so we could just as easily pick them up. We literally just dropped them to the ground. Yuan Shao does not have the resources to fund 2 armies. This will be to our advantage. We raised 2 armies, led by yours truly and Zhao Yun. Very belligerent indeed. Yuan Shao has already started marching towards our lands with his 1 army. The benefit of a large economy is that one could raise an army at a moment's notice. We raised one at the city Yuan Shao intended to siege and continued strolling to his only land. We may not have been able to take down Cao Cao for good, but Yuan Shao is a worthy alternative. Yuan Shao despised our faction, and he will do so no longer. Yuan Shao would always field professional armies against my militia, and in every campaign attempt, we would have to fight for our lives just to survive his onslaught. This time, it is we who will field professional armies against him. Our generals have ranked up to level 7. Combined with careful reform planning and a powerful economy, we are now capable of fielding fully professional armies. We have heavy tower spearmen, soldiers who could hold the line against any charge. Ye archers? No, ye marksmen. These professional archers are even better skirmishers than the Yi archers. Though they lack the sheer range power of the Onyx dragons, they can move while firing to evade enemy infantry, same as the Yi archers. Finally, the pride of our new army, the Cataphract. Though they are much slower than the mountain militia, the horses and the men that ride them are fully armored, and they are trained to throw all that weight at the enemy like a Wailord using body slam on a Pikachu. Sorry. Yuan Shao showed some tactical insight here, fighting uphill with forest cover. This will help him not only keep the advantage in melee fights, but gain resistance against arrows. Though, I recently acquired the ability to use fire arrows. We smoked Yuan Shao's men out of the forest in a manner that Sun Tzu himself would be proud of. They charged right into our heavy tower spearmen, who are all the more happy to play defense. And of course, the Cataphracts. Hammer and Anvil. Out of desperation, they challenged Guan Yu to a duel, but like this entire battle, it was an exercise in futility. We conquer Yuan Shao's last settlement and sink his dreams into the Yellow River. We recruit one of his generals. A smart decision. He knew Yuan Shao was done for. In the meanwhile, all of China believes it is all but certain that Sun Tzu will become emperor. Can we prove them wrong? As our armies finally drop their weapons and get to go home to their families, we find Yan Liang, the man responsible for executing the final blow against us in a past run, looking for employment. Past grudges aside, we can use a man of his talents, as one is always in the need of excellent vanguards to lead the cavalry, especially one that is rank 6 already. We welcome him into our fold. It is not a time for past grudges to get in the way of the now. As a gift to his new employers, he offers us a stone statue of Confucius. Yeah, we're getting along already. Now that it's peacetime, we could finally focus fully on the people. In particular, the Confucian temples to teach our values and an academy for education. We built the academy on Tao Qian's lands in honor of the late lord. For the first time in a while, our lands are unified and in peace. Who knows if we'll survive the next conflict, but for now, let us enjoy how we went from one city to a small nation. In another surprising turn of events, Hong Rong is willing to be unified, a good case of our rules benefiting us. He liked the honorable treatment of his generals after capture. Not only will Kong Rong's 2 territories merge with ours, but Kong Rong himself joins us as an excellent strategist that specializes in non-combat roles. Kong Rong really was an enemy, but with time, the virtuous could change people for the better. Kong Rong gifted us a copy of Art of War. These enemies turned allies do know how to get to my good side. The difficulty now comes from what to do next if peacetime continues. Despite how bloody the conflict has been, there are still a good amount of minor faction lords looking for protection in exchange for war support when the time comes. From here on, we slowly gather vassals. They will hopefully be loyal when the big war inevitably comes. After some pondering, perhaps the next step is to finally battle Dong Zhuo and rescue the young emperor. Plans are made. We unify with more minor warlords. As Sun Tzu said, to take a nation whole and intact is best. We recently unified a land from a minor warlord named Han Sui, who lived at the very edge of China in the northwest, not too far from Dong Zhuo's lands. While clearing out looters, we saw an army under Dong Zhuo cleaning out a city owned by the rebels. His appearance was unmistakable. Liu Bei. the warrior worth 1,000. That is who we will have to face once preparations are ready. He stands in the way of our goal of rescuing the Emperor. He was already strong in the records mode, which makes every general somewhat more realistic. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face him in romance mode, where he would likely be a scourge on the battlefield. But time waits for no one. Almost as if on cue, Gongsun Zan offers to declare war against Dongzhuo if we do. We oblige, but we must be swift. We have to be the ones to save the young emperor. If Gongsun Zan gets to him first, there's no telling what he will do to him. While perusing for spies, we came across an interesting offer. Jia Shu, who's one of Dongzhuo's legendary strategists, offered to spy for us. This could be beneficial. Assuming Jia Shu doesn't get caught, he will be a capable general once we defeat Dongzhuo. We accept his offer. His eyes and ears will be crucial if we want to win without too much unnecessary loss of life. Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and I deploy our army to the far northwest. The last thing we want is for Liu Bei to show up at an inopportune time. We need to take him down to begin our strike. In the meanwhile, Zhao Yun, Yan Liang, and Pang Tong leads our second army through Dongzhuo's lands from the north. While the first army's goal is to take down Liu Bei and assist in the invasion by the northwest, the second army will assault Dongzhuo's capital of Chang'an to liberate the emperor. Though we could have sent 4 armies, it was important that we had the money and the slots to make forces that could defend at a moment's notice in case we were attacked. Putting our eggs in one basket was one of the reasons our earlier campaign attempt failed. Dongzhuo has this strange habit of marching armies half-stacked halfway across China to attack our lands. In Ruyang, he showed up personally. We ordered General Wei Yan and Zhu Shu to muster an army quickly and defend from the invaders. When the mustering finishes a turn or two later, they march into Dongzhuo, who had encamped nearby. We attack from all sides, but Dongzhuo had prepared oil to cover 2 of the exits. However, a mishap on the right side burns 2 of his own retinues to death. While Zhu Shu's archers sent volley after volley onto Dongzhuo's men, the cavalry hit hard from the other side and engaged Dongzhuo. This attack from all sides breaks his men, and they flee. Dongzhuo soon routs too. He can rout surprisingly fast for a man of his size. That being said, we still ended up capturing the tyrant. We could make an exception and execute him, but we won't. Virtue has no exceptions. We spare him. Meanwhile, in the other front, we finally caught up to Liu Bei. His army was filled with professional units, not unlike the invincible army I once led in my Dongzhuo campaign. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei lead the charge. Liu Bei stood there on top of a hill, mocking us. Our heavy counterfrags and his heavy Jilian cavalry crash into each other. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei battle Liu Bei in a 1v2. Yet the duel was equal in every way. Who will win? No, that's, unfortunately, not what happened. Is Liu Bei stuck? It seems like he attempted to siege this fringe city earlier, and then a rebellion army showed up behind him. But when you leave a siege, you can't move in or into the enemy army's boundary circle thing. Usually all this does is to prevent an army from getting too close to another army without actually attacking them. But since Liu Bei is already in the circle, he can't move, like at all. On top of that, his army was only about 60% filled, and the retinues had been starving from attrition for the better part of an in-game year. 40 heavy Jilian cavalry were left, and the rest were just militia. We outnumbered them 2,600 to 750, and Liu Bei himself was so wounded that he rejected dueling challenges and just got defeated quite handily. Though this was obviously to our advantage. Not gonna lie, that was pretty anticlimactic. In the meanwhile, Zhao Yun finally arrives in Dongzhuo's capital of Chang'an, ready to rescue the emperor. The garrison in Chang'an chose to battle us in an open field rather than suffer attrition. Though Zhao Yun sports a fully professional army of Jian sword guards, Yi archers, and heavy cataphracts, he'll be battling against currently the only Imperial units in all of China. Imperial units are the most powerful units in the game. Chang'an is guarded by 6 retinue of Protectors of Heaven, essentially the perfect melee infantry. They're glaives, counter cavalry, and men alike. They are heavily armored, capable of complex formations like square and spear wall, and have the morale of iron. There are also 6 defenders of earth, archer units that are capable in melee, can fire while moving, and are decently armored. Their arrows hit like charging elephants, but their one weakness is that their range is actually half of that of any other archer, even militia. Our advisors claim Zhao Yun's forces are considerably inferior. This is a new tier of enemy that we will engage in the open field. But Zhao Yun is not alone. He has Yan Liang and the fledgling Phoenix by his side. We have yet another advantage. We are playing defense, thus we choose where to fight. We take a high hill and prepare our defenses. We don't even have to reserve spearmen in the back to counter cavalry, for they have none. While our archers pepper the enemy with arrows, Yan Liang and all 6 retinues of heavy cataphracts charge straight into a single retinue of Protectors of Heaven. Heavy cataphracts have one of the best charges amongst any unit, rivaling that of even Imperial cavalry. The Protectors rout, but 3 more retinue chase Yan Liang's horsemen. In the meanwhile, a few of our swordsmen rout. Our Jian sword defenders have solid shields for protecting against arrow fire, yet they ran after just a few volleys. The enemy defenders of Earth may lack range, but when they do fire, it causes massive damage to any target. They're more like short-range artillery, if that makes sense. It's clear that our infantry can't win this fight alone. Yan Liang and his heavy cataphracts bait the Protectors of Heaven into chasing his group and charge directly into the Defenders of Earth instead. Just like their melee counterparts, they too flee. Our army gives one final push, engaging the last few Imperial units with fury. Victory is ours. Zhao Yun then invades the now undefended Chang'an and rescues the Emperor.
The will of heaven is shifting. The Celestial Empire rests on the tip of a sword. The Emperor's old champions now stoke their own imperial ambitions. The old ways scatter like leaves before the coming storm. Their time is over. Change is carried on the wind.
Sometimes, an overwhelming amount of events happen so quickly that it's hard to process. Firstly, with the capture of Chang'an and the rescue of the Emperor, we become the 3rd and final faction to reach the rank of King, behind Gongsun Zan and Sun Ce. Thus, the 3 kingdoms formed. Secondly, the coalition between our faction, Gongsun Zan, and Sun Ce dissolved. Finally, what to do with the Emperor? You see, we have a decision to make. It was us, controlling Liu Bei, who led the effort to restore peace and order, to restore the Han, the very same dynasty that adopted Confucian beliefs and upheld prosperity and integrity. At least, in the past, they did. So, now that we finally rescued the Emperor, who will lead the Han restoration? Us? Or Emperor Xian? We have every right to take the throne. We were the ones that led the restoration, not just of the Han dynasty in name, but the virtue that once came with that name, not the Emperor. We were the ones that battled, not the Emperor. We were the ones that defeated Dong Zhuo and Lu Bu, not the Emperor. We were the ones that defended the people while the Emperor sat helpless in Chang'an. It was we. Well, what does the Confucian ideals we are fighting for say? I would argue this, that it all hinges on if the Emperor will be a virtuous ruler that works for the welfare of the people, the Junzi. Confucius argued for hierarchy when there is legitimacy, personal beliefs, or for personal gain. Will he follow the same virtuous rules as we do? And the answer is, yeah, at least as well as we have and will. You see, if we choose Emperor Xian, we become him. Liu Bei steps down and becomes one of our generals. If we become the Emperor, we will be virtuous, as we have proven this entire campaign attempt. With virtue and goodwill established, so is legitimacy. With legitimacy, hierarchy. Therefore, we will choose to restore Emperor Xian into the throne. The Han dynasty has returned. Emperor Xian is actually a non-combat character, but a very powerful one. He cannot be deployed into combat, making this sword more of a symbol than a practical tool. And this elephant I gave him because I thought it was funny. But anyways, he gains large diplomacy buffs with Han-related factions and lowers corruption across the board, amongst many other benefits. Corruption saps your territories of their income the larger you grow. Even with every proper building and reform established, it will never go away. But with Emperor Xian's ability, I have honestly never seen corruption this low for a kingdom this size. Liu Bei, of course, does not go unrewarded for his heroics. We grant him the rank of Imperial Chancellor, the highest rank beside Emperor. With the opening of our court positions to a larger size, we can reward many of our virtuous generals with positions we know they will not abuse. With our Emperor's diplomacy buffs, we gain more vassals to support us in our time of need and sign peace with as many people as we can. But perhaps The most important issue is this, that Sun Tzu is far too powerful. He inhabits the entirety of the center and south of China, and he will not stop until all of China is under his heel. He has no shortage of great heroes under his very similar looking red flag to ours. Perhaps the most important diplomatic treaty we signed right now was the non-aggression pact with Gongsun Zan. This again is not unbreakable, but it will help deter Gongsun Zan from making any drastic moves. In the name of his past friendship with Liu Bei, he accepts our terms. Though, I won't lie to you, it was still quite expensive. Later, we are able to finally convince another warlord named Liu Bei to join our temporary alliance. This is also important as Liu Bei has lands between ours and Sun Tzu in the west. If we have his help, the western front will prove more stable. In the same way, Cao Cao inhabits the between lands in the eastern front. Having agreements with them is important. We start preparing for the inevitable conflict. Zhu Shu musters an army from the eastern front. Zhao Yun will march into the western front once he has finished Dongzhuo, and Liu Bei will redeploy to the center front. All of their armies will have the best possible soldiers, except for the supporting armies that help siege fortified cities and defending armies that have fortified cities supporting them. Being low cost, this will allow our war chest to grow even while we are at war. Our economy is powerful, but having 6 fully imperial armies was not a burden that the treasury could bear. While we have a little pocket of peace, we need to take care of Dongzhuo. His lands are in absolute panic. He's being attacked by a rebellion leader named He-Man and our Zhao Yun. Zhao Yun makes a brave risk, attacking Dongzhuo while being outnumbered 3,000 to nearly 6,000. But Dongzhuo has no idea what's coming for him. As one of the 3 factions that claim to be emperor, we now have access to the very imperial units that once stood in our way. Zhao Yun's personal soldiers consist of 6 retinues of fully ready protectors of heaven. Zhao Yun's army moves into Dongzhuo's forces to destroy his detachment before his reinforcements could properly arrive. Dongzhuo hides his units in the forest, while we keep our units out of the forest. You see, trees are flammable. His melee troops are surrounded by fire and unable to move while Yan Liang's heavy cataphracts slam into their archers. Yan Liang challenges an enemy general to a duel in the midst of the chaos, coming out victorious with absolute ease. It's clear that the enemy general was just trying to buy time to control Yan Liang's destruction. When the second detachment of enemies arrive, the fire spreads a little bit too close to our forces, causes some disorder in our formations. Zhao Yun orders his infantry to form a defensive line away from the forest and prepare to receive the rest of the enemy forces. The issue for Dongzhuo's army was that the fire prevented much of his infantry from getting close, while our archers kept attacking them and causing even more fires. The heavy cataphracts, in the meanwhile, took every opportunity to rout the enemy ranged troops. The entire force was on fire. Heavy cataphracts dispatched the ranged troops at every opportunity, and the melee troops attempted in vain to charge the protectors of heaven. By the end, only 1,200 of Dongzhuo's 6,000 troops were alive, while Zhao Yun still had 2,300 out of his 3,000. Dongzhuo was soundly defeated, but to take over every single pass, it would take many losses, and time we do not have. Remember, passes have everything that Sun Tzu advised against attacking. Thus, we approached Dongzhuo and offered vassalship. Although he was unwilling to unify, this was a good alternative. Dongzhuo is forced to accept. He, his champion, and his armies were soundly defeated. But with one threat, another emerges. Gongsun Zan wasted no time starting his assault. A fully stacked army of professional and militia units arrived near Dongzhuo's lands. But we came prepared, as the Western Front was already getting ready to march on Sun Tzu's western lands. A second army, led by strategist Zhang Hong, was already ready to go in Chang'an. Gongsun Zan is about to learn that professional units, and especially militia units, cannot survive in this part of the game without the support of elite units he is clearly not giving. There was no amazing strategy deployed, and one was unneeded. Their infantry took countless volleys of flaming arrows before smashing themselves against the glaives of the protectors. When they least expected it, armored cataphracts completely demolished what semblance of formation that was left. Who said love can't flourish in war? We take Cao Cao, a recently hired general, as our empress. This was totally because of pragmatic or virtuous reasons. Yeah, I have never seen one love virtue as much as beauty. Shh. Anyways, though Confucius would not have approved, he can't say he didn't see this coming, right? We currently have 5 elite armies, and the treasury would start to lose money if we had any more. But this is still a bad situation. Although our main lands in the east are defended quite well by Empress Cao Cao's army, having a 2 opposite front war would end poorly for us. The only option for us is to defeat Gongsun Zan enough times in the battlefield to convince him that a temporary peace is necessary. Honestly, at this stage of the game, I was deathly afraid of making any wrong moves. A war of 2 opposite fronts against the 2 most powerful factions in the game was not a situation I wanted. But this is the situation we have regardless. Our one saving grace are the vassals. Our vassals surround Sun Ce from multiple sides, bleeding Sun Ce's coffers and offering stiff resistance against his forces. If I may be a bit meta here, the benefits of vassals is that they're still legendary AI, so they absolutely cheat and can pump out armies for a lower cost. This makes vassals cost-efficient allies, beneficial over having our own armies battle when they are already stretched thin. Hence why we didn't unify with them, even when we could have. Let's quickly go over the fronts where all the major battles will occur from now on. Against Sun Ce, there are 3 fronts. The Western Front, led by Zhang Hong, a seasoned general who has been with us since near the beginning. The Center Front, led by our legendary hero, Liu Bei. And finally, the Eastern Front, led by our strategist, Zhu Shu. Though Sun Ce is considerably more powerful, Gongsun Zan cannot be underestimated as our capitals are close to each other. If a capital is conquered, we lose our bid to become emperor. Against Gongsun Zan, there are primarily 2 fronts. The same Western Front, but led by the legendary hero Zhao Yun, and the Northern Front in the city of Puyang, where we border Gongsun Zan, defended by our Empress Cao Cao. Zhao Yun and Zhang Hong were originally supposed to push Sun Ce's western territories together, but Gongsun Zan sent yet another army. Largely militia, yes, but easily enough to overwhelm Chang'an, which was the bastion of the Western Front. This meant that Zhang Hong had to carefully go into Sun Ce's territory alone for now. One thing that must be understood about Sun Ce is that he is so powerful that each of the fronts can expect to battle multiple armies with little time to replenish. Zhang Hong arguably had the safest front in the west, as it was owned and defended by 3 vassals. The Eastern Front was a different story. Although there were some allied vassals on the far south and southeast, there were none there. Worse, this was where the ocean was, meaning Sun Ce and his only vassal constantly sent ships of fully stacked armies here. This front was manned by 2 armies, Zhu Shu and Jia Shu, who, if you remember, spied against his master Dong Zhuo earlier. Finally, the center front was manned by Liu Bei. Liu Bei's job was to hold the line. More importantly, he was also to hold the line against Cao Cao once he inevitably decides to rear that snake head of his. This front has no vassals and less support. Hence why such a terrible front was given to our faction's greatest heroes. Though they don't exactly shower us with victories as a result, them holding the line will be the only victory we need. If they lose, our center lands are completely helpless. The goal of the armies in the Western Front is this. Sun Ce had been sending army after army towards the center front using the Yangtze River that goes across the center of China and through the Hui Pass. Their intention is to conquer the Western Front and easily send forces to the center front simultaneously. While Zhang Hong's job in the Western Front is to push towards Sun Ce, his job is also to destroy any army that takes this river path, with Zhao Yun joining him after he successfully defends against Gongsun Zan near Chang'an. But with this many armies, it is impossible for even both their elite armies to tackle every single army. Unlike Gongsun Zan, Sun Ce stacks fully elite armies. There's also no boat combat in the game, so whenever any boat combat automatically resolves, it takes into consideration only the tiers of the units and how replenished they are. As the style of our military is to not use the Defenders of Heaven due to their lack of range, this means we technically use lesser units in the eyes of the auto combat that resolves between boats. As a result, stopping these armies while they are in transit is simply not an option against Sun Ce. Entire armies will drown if we try. Liu Bei will have to deal with these enemies from every side, often with just a single army and little replenishment. It will be a miracle if he survives for long, hence why we have to seek peace with either side when given the chance. Our hope is that either side will abdicate their claim to emperor once they realize they cannot win. Thus, our goal is not to conquer every bit of enemy territory, it's to defeat the enemy's hope of becoming emperor. No front is easy, they will all be difficult to push. Even a single army in any of these fronts could tip the scales, but Gongsun Zan forces the requirement of 1 or 2 armies in shared borders in the northwest near Dongzhuo's former capital of Chang'an, and east in our capital city of Beihai. This is the bloodiest part of the campaign. Many lives will be lost. No peace offered. But it is especially in these times we have to show virtue. Killing enemy generals, especially when they are this powerful in romance mode, would be to our advantage. But we made a promise to never again break the alignment with heaven. Bring it on.
Opportunity is seldom presented and easily lost. The Emperor is vulnerable. Warlords rise to his defense, whilst others cannot resist the lure of power. They stake their claim with steel and blood. In the ever-growing chaos, there is only one absolute truth. China's fate will be forged in war.
Zhang Hong makes some progress in the Western Front by conquering a town that will be used as a staging ground for offense and defense. He proceeds carefully, as Zhao Yun had marched instead to Chang'an to protect it against Gongsun Zan. Near our city of Puyang, Empress Cao Cao plays 2 interesting roles. Not only is her job to defeat any army that dares to get close to the Emperor, her job is actually to bait Gongsun Zan's armies. You see, Gongsun Zan has a horizontal line of armies that slowly go west to Chang'an. But whenever Cao Cao defeats one of their armies and enters their territory, some of the armies actually change their mind and attempt to return. This buys precious time. Gongsun Zan realizes that his current tactics were not working. Zhao Yun demolished any army that came west to Chang'an, and the Empress defended and even counterattacked Gongsun Zan by conquering one of his border towns. Though it was extremely expensive, we gave a single territory to Gongsun Zan for temporary respite. Despite our efforts, our coffers were half the size they were before this 2-front war started. This would not only give our treasury some time to recuperate, but it also allows Zhao Yun to march towards Zhang Hong's location. Empress Cao Cao relocates temporarily from defending our capital of Beihai to the far northwest, where some looters have taken over some of our lands. They are surprisingly well armed with some high-tier units. Though we have every pragmatic reason to not defend the fringe lands there, it is our promise as Emperor that every land under the dynasty deserves proper protection. Zhushu and Jiashu make some progress in the Eastern Front despite the steady stream of armies. Unlike the stream of armies in the Western Front, the armies take more than a few turns to arrive in the Eastern Front and are spaced out more. This is because Sun Tzu's armies arrive in the Eastern Front via extremely long, multi-turn boat crews. Zhushu and Jiashu's armies stay close so they could support each other, but there is a key way you could attack armies as if they are alone, and that's with night battles. One of Sun Tzu's generals started a night battle with Jiashu, whose army was made up of supporting militia forces only. He was defeated handily. Zhushu defeats his army afterwards. However, this didn't change the fact that we lost half of our forces in the Eastern Front. Truth be told, our public order is extremely high, as almost every province has a Confucian temple, and since we long ago focused on civil reforms first, our lands are extremely stable against rebellion, and we could just as easily raise taxes with literally no issue. Of course, that's not true. There is a clear issue, as it breaks one of our vows. The Western Front takes a hit. Remember when we mentioned boat combat and how it was best for us to avoid it against Sun Tzu's elite forces? Well, that knowledge was paid for in blood. Zhang Hong attempted to intercept forces, but realized he was outmatched. He attempted to retreat, but ended up getting caught by another enemy army making the same journey. This set back the Western Front greatly. Unfortunately, one of the vanguard generals Tian Yu, under Zhang Hong's command, was executed. A ritual was to be performed out of respect of the late general. No army, unless moving to defend, were to move. Zhao Yun makes it to the Western Front, and Zhang Hong makes another army there. There seemed to be no end to the enemy armies boating through the Yangtze River. In the meanwhile, Empress Cao Cao has completed retaking the northern fringe lands from the looters. Dong Peishan, Dongzhuo's wife, is tasked with looking after the fringe territories with her militia army, at least for quite a few turns. She bravely defends the civilians there from the looters.
Defy us and pay the price!
The peace between our faction and Gongsun Zan's may not last at this rate. He put forth an ultimatum. He wanted one of our lands and would declare war if we refused. This was extortion, truly. but all of our armies were fully focused on battling Sun Tzu's onslaught. Though many may disagree with this decision, we gave in. For now. But if he did this again, we would not hesitate to go to war. Zhu Shu, in the meanwhile, battles none other than Sun Quan in an open field while sieging a town. Sun Quan is no emperor here, having nothing but militia. He is defeated with ease, losing 4,000 men while we lose 1,000. Every victory seemed so small, however. Our spies reported countless boats rowing their way to the eastern front. Zhu Shu won victory after victory, but he'd be overwhelmed at this rate. Especially dire with the news that Sun Tzu himself was actually making the trek from his lands to the eastern front. In the center front, Liu Bei was stuck in a bad situation. Surrounded by enemy armies from all sides, he hides his army, waiting for the right time to strike. The enemy armies here are waiting for the reinforcements from the Yangtze River to strike all at once. If that happens, the entire center would collapse. But for now, the threat of Liu Bei's army being somewhere out there is enough for them to simply fortify themselves behind their city walls. Liu Bei was finally supported by another army led by Li Ru, and a bit more east, we redeploy Emperor Cao Cao here. Our fronts are looking good, and our treasury is slowly increasing again. But one can wonder how long until Gongsun Zan decides it's time to strike. After a turn or two, Liu Bei's long period of remaining hidden finally bears fruit. Sun Ren, Sun Tzu's sister, was defending a local city. Liu Bei would not succeed in sieging such a well-defended place without support. But while Li Ru tried to muster an army, Sun Ren decided to attack. However, Liu Bei was hidden right behind her army. Sun Ren, for whatever reason, decided militia units would be enough to battle Liu Bei. It's likely since Liu Bei was on the run from multiple armies for a while. But when those armies were slowly defeated by Liu Bei, she never bothered to bring in imperial units for her own army. Thus, her largely militia army was attacked by two fully stacked imperial armies led by Liu Bei and Li Ru. We captured Sun Ren post-battle, but as usual, we showed our virtue by releasing her, even if we would have gotten a pretty sweet sword for executing her. Anyway, Liu Bei and Li Ru continued cleaning up armies that are foolish enough to attack. The next turn, it was finally our time to go on the offensive, to break the stalemate in the center front. Empress Cao Cao and Li Ru stack up to battle 2 versus 2 against Jiling. How unfortunate. Jiling was a loyal general in our Cao Cao campaign. The battle would be a strange one, as Li Ru's army was a defensive one with extra protectors of heaven and archers in exchange for a complete lack of cavalry. The heavy cataphracts bought time for the infantry to slowly dismantle theirs. However, the battle did not go as well as planned. They had protectors of heaven retinues that battled ours on equal ground, resulting in heavy losses. The fact that we only had 6 retinues of regular cataphracts meant that we could not flank the enemy as much as we would have preferred. Heavy cataphracts also would have been more preferable, but a vanguard type general needs to be rank 6 in order to recruit them. We did not have many of these. We lost half our men among the 6,000 deployed in this battle, a Pyrrhic victory. A third fully stacked army was in the horizon. This did not bode well. But while the center front was in peril, so was the eastern front. Zhu Shu's army was exhausted from battling alone. The plan was to replenish before continuing, but another boat of enemies arrived and quickly sieged the town of Linhai that Zhu Shu recently took over. The army was exhausted and the local militia was as well. This looked to be a surefire defeat, perhaps the end of the line for Zhu Shu and Wei Yan, 2 generals that have been with us for so long. But Zhu Shu nevertheless deployed. He had a plan. This town is unlike any we have fought before. Much of it was uncrossable, all but 2 long passes. A perfect place for defense. Our armies were depleted and could not take much hits, so every bit mattered. Through some of our military reforms, we unlocked a few defensive items that have seen limited use. Zhu Shu lines both passes with the stakes that counter cavalry charges, with the Protectors of Heaven assuming spear formation, militia spearmen behind them to support particularly nasty cavalry charges, and archers at the ready. Another reform gave access to caltrops. Caltrops slowed especially enemy infantry. Though they were helpful in preventing cavalry from attacking archers in an open battlefield, here they could be utilized fully by littering the pass with small and sharp spikes. The final defensive item was spilling oil on the ground. Lighting it on fire would burn an entire retinue of men in mere seconds. Our men were not as replenished, but in Sun Tzu's eyes, this was the perfect defensive land. The infantry would hold the line while the archers fired at will. In case one side broke, we had cataphracts that would act as the final line of defense. The battle begins with some scouting forces testing the might of our soldiers. Jushu waits patiently, specifically ordering the soldiers to not use flaming arrows in case they accidentally started burning the oil early. The enemy sent some forces to test the strength of our defenses, but the men hold firm. Very few things in China could penetrate through a prepared spear wall of protectors of heaven. Frustrated, the general decides to send in a good portion of their forces to charge in when the archers on the left side ran out of ammo. Jushu gives the signal. The flaming oil burns through hundreds of men in seconds, absolutely destroying every enemy retinue that attacked the left side. The right side is also given the signal. An entire retinue of spearmen burned to cinders, the rest fleeing. The generals themselves attempted to charge through the left line. Honestly, almost succeeding, but the archers helped hold the line once they were out of arrows. It was not over yet. The east side was seeing a big push by the enemy, but the caltrops helped increase the distance between each enemy retinue, and the archers on the right side still had ammo remaining. Wei Yan himself fought there personally. It was too much for the enemy. The defensive lines held like a tower shield against a spear. Jushu lost just under 400 men, while Sun Tzu's faction nearly lost 2,000. Jushu was no Zhuge Liang, but in the Emperor's eyes, he was greater. The Eastern Front had finally seen some true progress. Jushu's heroic pass defense in Linhai wiped out the last of Sun Tzu's army in the Eastern Front, at least for now. Jiashu uses this opportunity to secure the Eastern Front. Our lands now meet with the vassal Wang Lang, greatly securing our power. In the Western Front, Zhang Hong and Zhao Yun make steady progress towards holding the Kui Pass, which hopefully will help block the flow of armies into the center front. However, things are dire in the center front. Emperor Cao Cao and Li Ru's forces took too much loss in their past battle. When yet another army reinforced the enemy, they counterattacked. This should not have happened, but for whatever reason, every spy we sent to Sun Tzu would quickly betray us. On top of that, our scouts have been captured while attempting to scout this area. As a result, we did not see this coming. The Empress attempted to hold a defensive line in the open field with forests on the left and right. She burned the forest on the left when the enemy approached there, but the infantry of Protectors of Heaven simply could not hold on, as each retinue only had about 50 of the 240 men they normally had. The cataphracts were all slain, stopping the enemy cavalry. The infantry collapsed, and soon the archers routed. The Empress and Li Ru were lucky they made it out uncaptured, but 2 entire elite armies were lost in a single turn, a massive blow to the center front. After a string of losses and near defeats, Gongsun Zan decides to rub salt on the wound and declare war together with Cao Cao. Luckily, our careful financial planning ensured that our treasury grew just enough to support the mustering of new armies. However, he starts an attack so abruptly that he nearly wins it all. His army quickly went from the edge of our borders directly into our capital of Beihai. What saved us hilariously was just how cheap Gongsun Zan was compared to Sun Tzu. The army was using an ability to siege without equipment, allowing for one to attack a fortified city immediately instead of after one turn. However, the men Gongsun Zan used in the siege were almost entirely militia, with a few professional great swordsmen sprinkled in. A local vassal army assisted us with the imperial garrison in the capital, and Gongsun Zan was pushed back. However, this taught us an important lesson, that the capital had to be manned at all times. You see, if a king were to lose his capital, he automatically abdicates his claim to emperor. If we are to restore the Han dynasty, this cannot come to pass. General Dong Peishan, Dong Zhuo's wife if you remember, was redeployed to our capital of Beihai after she recently fended off the looters in the French territories. Though she will only lead militia, combined with Beihai's imperial garrison, this should suffice against any army. In the meanwhile, Cao Cao yet again was marching his army towards us. Our spy had been biding his time, telling us Cao Cao's whereabouts loyally. Our spy was so close to Cao Cao, he even offered to assassinate him. But no, this is not the way. That would erode our legitimacy. Emperor Cao Cao relocates to Puyang to protect the land against Gongsun Zan. However, he had struck our borders so quickly that Emperor Cao Cao's new army had not mustered fully. Now Cao Cao's only option was to retreat and bait the enemy into attempting to attack her and moving away when they got close enough. A keen eye for army marching distance allows her to slowly replenish her men in her own territory before engaging the enemy army. Once her army was strong enough, she marched her army just a little bit closer and chose to battle on her terms. The reason why she chose to fight a defending battle here was the terrain. Liu Bei long ago had to play defense in these parts. The map had huge hills, in particular this one hill that was perfect for holding the line, as it held a powerful high ground and was away from trees, thus allowed the usage of fire arrows. This strong high ground made enemy infantry struggle going uphill while taking hails of arrows. In the meanwhile, the cataphract were more than happy to charge downhill straight towards the enemy cavalry. By the time the local militia got to the battlefield, the battle was already over. It was a decisive victory. In the meanwhile, our dynasty starts to feel the effects of our defeat at the center front. Even Gongsun Zan has started taking territory there. He was not at war with Sun Ce, so it seems both these men are content with ripping apart our faction first before battling each other. Zhang Hong and Zhao Yun in the western front do make good progress. They secured much of the western front and the Kui Pass, using Liu Bei's Annex ability to take it without an issue. They move on to the center front to reinforce. However, there's trouble back home. Gongsun Zan had personally landed near the town of Lian. Dong Peishan was actually garrisoned in that town, but her militia army would not be a match for Gongsun Zan's, which had some professionals and a retinue of heavy cataphracts. Her orders were to protect the imperial capital of Beihai instead. She had her army march there, but she had second thoughts. This was breaking their code, to protect the people.
I cannot agree to this course.
The emperor realized she spoke the truth. This was the same mistake we as a faction made in the past attempt. We would not be repeating them. Dong Peishan's army had enough time to move back to Lian and protect it. We nod in agreement. The original plan may have been protecting Beihai, but this was not our way. We had to protect the people best we could, no matter where they lived, as long as they were under our protection. Dong Peishan quickly marches to Lian and steals her army against the coming force. Gongsun Zan attacks with full force. He likely thinks to himself that this will be easy. Dong Zhuo's wife was of no one of import. She was not a legendary general. In this town, there were 4 ways to enter, each guarded by 2 arrow towers. The leftmost opening was defended lightly, save for a single retinue of spearmen and anti-cavalry spikes. Dong Peishan moves their horsemen out that way, looking to flank the enemy forces attempting to enter one of the openings. The spearmen throw the caltrops in front of each opening, preparing for the enemy charge. Gongsun Zan and his general charge into the 3rd opening. His charge breaks straight through the formation, soon routing the spearmen there. Dong Peishan swiftly moves her horsemen around the entire enemy army. However, some retinues of militia stood in her way, preventing her from flanking. Instead of backing off, she orders everyone to charge at the enemy. Time was of the essence. Her mounted militia smashed straight into the enemy retinue, routing them quickly. There was still no opportunity to flank the enemy, so she quickly turns her horsemen towards the enemy archers. She orders the archers who ran out of ammo to raise their swords and hold the enemy, and the archers that did have ammo to start keeping their distance from the enemy to buy time. She repeatedly charges into the isolated enemy retinues until, seeing an opening, Dong Peishan charges straight into the enemy flanks in the 2nd opening, held bravely by the militia holding the line. Back and forth, back and forth. Peishan turns her horsemen into a battering ram against the enemy's formation. This causes a massive routing, causing no less than 7 entire retinue of enemy forces to one by one flee the battle. But Gongsun Zan's generals cause too much damage. She challenges an enemy general to a desperate duel and orders her horsemen to continue cleaning up the forces outside of the town and rejoin the struggling forces inside the town afterwards. Her infantry inside had routed, but managed to regroup. They gathered together to help the left side battling against Gongsun Zan himself. But Dong Peishan falls in battle. She knew she would, but she was simply making sure that the enemy general did not cause too much damage. However, when the news of her defeat spreads, the entire left side and most of her mounted militia rout. They managed to regroup just barely. The surviving militia from the left and right side charge into Gongsun Zan's remaining forces. Gongsun Zan, completely caught off guard by the resistance that met him, fled the battlefield. His 2 generals, however, are able to clean up the remaining forces. The remaining militia from the right side tried their best, but fighting 2 generals was just not feasible. The battle was lost. But by the end of it, Gongsun Zan had lost 2 out of the 3,000 men that he brought into that fight, striking a key blow against his designs. This also bought enough time for General Li Ru, who had been mustering his forces in the nearby town of Jimo, to march to Lian. He fully intended on avenging her defeat, and unlike Dong Peishan, he was commanding elite units that were born to fight. On the eastern front, Sun Ce had finally landed. There were 3 armies currently there. Jia Shu's army took the province near Mount Qiyun. Zhu Shu had recently taken a town further east, and Zhao Ryujin mustered a full army of militia to support them both. Jia Shu quickly takes the opportunity to set up an ambush together with Zhao Ryujin against Sun Ce. To take down the enemy leader would be a huge blow to his confidence that he could win the war. The ambush succeeds. Surprisingly, Sun Ce had only brought a few imperial units. The rest were militia and 3 cataphracts. The multi-front war was clearly not kind to his wallet. The issue with the ambush was that the reinforcing army would take 3 full minutes to start entering the edge of the battlefield, which was Jia Shu's elite army. Zhao Ryujin's army was all militia. Zhao Ryujin not only had to deal a key blow to Sun Ce's army, but hold the line afterwards until Jia Shu made it to the battlefield. The ambush begins. Zhao Ryujin's cavalry and infantry sandwiched the enemy while the archers fired their volleys. Zhao Ryujin had saber cavalry instead of mounted militia, thus their charge attack was not as strong. As a result, the sandwiched forces took longer to rout, causing some of our friendly infantry to flee. Already, Sun Ce regrouped his army to counterattack. Though Zhao Ryujin did the same, her sword militia were already struggling not to rout. Jia Shu finally makes it into the field. Without delay, he orders his troops to double time and make it to the battle. The cataphracts burst into action, and Jia Shu's forces just barely make it in time to protect Zhao Ryujin's archers. Her melee infantry and saber cavalry had already started to collapse. The entire forest lights on fire from the flaming arrows. With the Protectors of Heaven and the cataphracts making it into the battlefield, the battle was finally over. Sun Ce fights back the best he could, but flees. Although the war was not over, Sun Ce had been defeated, at least for now. However, we could no longer ignore another enemy that finally reared their fangs, Cao Cao. He marches towards our lands once more, the very lands that were once Tao Qian's. His obsession with them stops here and now. Emperor Cao Cao's imperial army is to march to his lands once Gongsun Zan is taken care of. Gongsun Zan's damaged army continues to roam our lands, but Li Ru and Kong Rong are now on the field, with armies ready to protect our people. While Kong Rong defends the city of Puyang, Li Ru catches up to Gongsun Zan's army. Weakened by his previous conflict, he is quickly dispatched by Li Ru's imperial army. Although Gongsun Zan managed to escape, vengeance had been achieved. The other fronts bring dire news. Zhao Yun and Zhang Hong are caught between 2 enemy armies, their own armies exhausted and unreplenished. They are both taken down, another huge blow to the center front. In the meanwhile, to prepare against Cao Cao, Liu Bei himself redeploys to Puyang, intent on battling against the Cao Cao menace. He won before, and he intends on doing it again. In the eastern front, not 1, not 2, and not 3, but 4 fully stacked armies have shown up. It seems Sun Ce is angry and has retaliated with an extreme show of force. But finally, the heavens have rewarded us for continuing to follow virtue. Even in times of duress, even in times when it would have been pragmatic, even when we wanted to. Gongsun Zan, after a string of defeats, is willing to abdicate his claim to emperorship. Admittingly, he was on the fence about it, but after I vassalized his only vassal, he was finally convinced. Gongsun Zan's lands are confederated into our own, doubling the size of our lands. After we recalled some of Gongsun Zan's former armies, our economy's strength had been immensely buffed. We pump out armies like no tomorrow. 2 full stacks of imperial armies are mustered every turn. Every front was about to receive reinforcements. This news completely turned Cao Cao's attitude. He offers to become a vassal in exchange for peace. Though some may insist, remember that we always believe that the virtuous can help others turn a new leaf. We hope him a good ally.
To a new beginning.
We order our new vassal Cao Cao to join our war effort against Sun Ce. There could be no true peace until one of us abdicates our claim to the throne. But perhaps we were too hopeful that Cao Cao would turn a new leaf. He literally betrays us the very next turn. Zhao Yun, Yan Liang, and Zhang Hong attempt to muster another army into Kui Pass, the place between the western and center front. But Sun Ce's army attacks them before they are ready. The incomplete retinues collapse against Sun Ce's 2 imperial armies. Worse, our loyal general Zhang Hong was captured and executed. During the ritual turn where no army was to move, I was admittingly frustrated. We spared every general that we captured during our battles against Sun Tzu. No, more than that, we spared Sun Tzu, Sun Quan, and Sun Ren. We basically spared his entire damn family. We not once razed or looted any of the towns we conquered. We approached Sun Tzu countless times to listen to reason. Hong Rong and Gongsun Zan unified their lands with us and were given high positions in court. They both not once executed any of my generals, since they understood I was kind enough to never do the same. Sun Tzu will pay for his crimes. Though none of our armies are to move, that doesn't mean we can't continue mustering. Sun Tzu doesn't understand that even during a two-front war, we were at a stalemate. Now that Gongsun Zan, his lands, his armies, and his generals are under our command, it is all but over for him. Our economy is now so ungodly massive that we have 9 imperial armies running around on the map, and we are still making 20,000 coins per turn. Though much of these coins go into province infrastructure, as is our promise, that is an economy Sun Tzu has clearly not invested in. Though some may not like it, we signed a temporary truce. Though he will surely use his time to build up his war chest, Sun Tzu could wait. He will get his comeuppance for his crimes. For right now, our current menace is Cao Cao. His lands inhibit the center of China, and he will wreak havoc if given the chance. Empress Cao Cao and the Imperial Chancellor Liu Bei start their attack against Cao Cao's territories from the east, while Zhao Yun, Gongsun Zan, and Pang Tong eat Cao Cao's lands from the west. Every army from every front converged into Cao Cao's location. Yet, he remained stubborn about confederating. He offered vassalage, but we all know how that went, literally 2 turns ago. Cao Cao finally shows himself, attacking Liu Bei with his 2 armies. They were fully replenished and ready to kill, made up of mostly professional units. But Liu Bei's army was filled with Yi marksmen, protectors of heaven, and heavy cataphracts. Of course, Liu Bei is never without his oath-sworn brothers, Guan Yu and Zhang Fei. Cao Cao is quite crafty. His chosen battlefield gives him a huge high ground advantage, the only one in the entire battlefield. But to minimize fire mishaps, Liu Bei orders his army to move away from the forest and slowly march upwards. Heavy cataphracts led by Guan Yu and Zhang Fei go up a little bit higher, preparing to engage any cavalry that attempt to do some early damage on the friendly infantry. Liu Bei's heavy cataphracts and Cao Cao's heavy tiger and leopard cavalry charge directly into each other. But not only are his cavalry outnumbered, tiger and leopard cavalry specialize in ranged defense due to the shield they carry. This was not ranged combat. Cao Cao's elite cavalry soon rout, but they succeed in buying Cao Cao time for his 2 armies to combine into one huge force. Undeterred, Liu Bei orders his troops to march. When it was time, the Protectors of Heaven get into spear wall formation. The heavy cataphracts focus on taking down Cao Cao's attempts to have his cavalry hit our Yi marksmen. Cao Cao himself shows up, and Liu Bei engages. But Liu Bei was hardened by countless turns of combat in the center front. He doesn't even take a scratch, while Cao Cao is already greatly wounded. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei engage the enemy generals. Like true brothers, they both come out victorious. Despite this, Liu Bei's army still took some damage as a result of fighting against high ground. But the 3 brothers group up and charge the remaining enemy combatants. One by one, they flee. They take with them the last of Cao Cao's dreams of becoming emperor. Liu Bei positions himself next to Cao Cao's last city. We have not forgotten about Sun Tzu, but a spy did report something interesting. Sun Tzu amassed no less than 5 fully stacked armies around his capital. His obsession with defending his capital is the same mistake we made in our past failed attempt. He declares war on us once again. After this, there will be no more peace until one of us becomes victorious. Liu Bei tries and tries to convince Cao Cao. Join us, unify with us. But I made it clear, we cannot afford to be entertaining Cao Cao much longer. Sun Tzu's forces are coming. Cao Cao further insults our efforts by ambushing our general Han Sui's army. Han Sui's army was fully imperial, but Cao Cao had 5 generals by his side, including legendary strategist Sima Yi, along with thousands more men. His army this time was fully professional, with some elite units mixed in. Han Fui holds a defensive line, while the cataphracts attempt to flank the infantry. The Onyx Dragons fire volley after volley of flaming arrows, but the infantry took far too many casualties and start to rout. The same was for the cavalry. There were just too many of them. When reinforcements arrive, Han Sui's army folds. I order Liu Bei, enough. We have tried to reason with this madman for far too long. This was to end here and now. Han Sui nearly paid his life for this. In the meanwhile, we are completely blindsided in the far northwest, near Dongzhuo's former lands. Sun Tzu had some territory there, and he was secretly raising an army to conquer our largely unprotected lands. Li Ru is tasked with mustering an army and stopping the menace there. Li Ru orders his catapults to destroy their archer towers. Then the Onyx Dragon archers rain arrows upon especially the enemy archers. However, the enemy proves to be incredibly resilient in morale, as they were inside the fort that they were defending. The archers quickly run out of ammo, and the Protectors of Heaven attack. However, truth be told, the Protectors of Heaven are better defensive units than they are offensive units. Then, the Cataphracts attempt to charge into the enemy lines. However, he fails to successfully siege their fortified town and takes heavy losses. The siege breaks and many men die for our failures. Li Ru quickly retreats his army before any more harm could be done. The Eastern Front and the Center Front show several of Sun Tzu's armies marching once more. Zhu Shu again leads the efforts in the Eastern Front, while Zhao Yun defends it from the Center Front. Speaking of Zhao Yun, he finally baits one of Sun Tzu's armies into an attack. But this isn't just any army, it's led by Gan Ning. He was a general that Zhang Hong defeated early in the Western Front. However, he was also the reason Zhang Hong died, as Gan Ning was the general of the army that got in the way of Zhao Yun and Zhang Hong's escape from the Center Front. Zhang Hong was Zhao Yun's partner in the Western Front, so this battle was personal. This was a battle between higher tier armies. Zhao Yun chooses to hold the ground here. Zhao Yun declares, "We don't move from here. This was where we'll fight. This is where they die." Gan Ning's cavalry skewer themselves getting through the spikes, but the battle has begun. Where were the enemy cavalry? Gan Ning wonders. He looks around, then sees it. 6 heavy cataphracts in wedge formation slam straight into a retinue of protectors and obliterate their morale. The one leading them is none other than Gongsun Zan, one of the 3 former kings of China. Gan Ning attempts to light the nearby forest on fire, but all Zhao Yun does is simply move his men a little bit out of the way. Gongsun Zan's cavalry makes short work of the imperial units, flanking them until the morale was lower than even the most broken of peasants. Zhao Yun faces his friend's killer and sends him packing. Zhao Yun joins the battlefield, routing the remaining enemy protectors. Gan Ning is captured after battle, but without hesitating, Zhao Yun releases Gan Ning. The general was a personal enemy of both Zhao Yun and Liu Bei, but Zhao Yun was steadfast and did not hesitate to spare his life. It was what Zhang Hong would have wanted. It was what heaven desired. Liu Bei, in the meantime, tried to reason with Cao Cao, even while sieging his final city, but he promised the emperor earlier that this would be the last time he'd spare Cao Cao. After Cao Cao refuses for the final time, Liu Bei ends it, taking his last land. Though Cao Cao was never captured, he was never seen again. The Eastern Front has countless armies littering it. It's clear that Sun Tzu is betting all of his hopes on the armies here. Han Sui and Zhu Shu, along with 2 more supporting armies, are here, but one false step and any army can find themselves facing 4 alone. Han Sui and Zhu Shu were the first to be attacked. It was them 2 versus 4 entire armies. Han Sui had not once so far won a battle, but every time he was attacked, he made sure that it sorely hurt the enemy in the process. He was sure that loss would be his fate again, but with Zhu Shu, the legendary strategist by his side, perhaps they could win. They may have been greatly outnumbered, but their personal retinues were elite imperial mixes of units. Once Zhu Shu's heavy cataphracts and Han Sui's cataphracts grouped up, they started causing immense damage before the fighting between the infantry even began. As there was no harsh high ground to climb against, they simply sped off like horses in a pretty derby the moment the enemy attempted to retaliate. Han Sui orders his heavy cataphracts to run circles around the enemy, to buy time for their armies to combine. The enemy couldn't even think about hoping to match 12 retinues of cataphracts. It was pure insanity. They circled around until they catch some reinforcements off guard. In the meanwhile, the enemy generals, arrogant of their numerical superiority, simply orders everyone to attack the closest thing they see. With a handful of retinues, they attempt to attack a defensive formation of a dozen Protectors of Heaven and nearly a dozen of China's finest archers. This place was also fully lined with caltrops to slow the enemy. These commands were so foolish, one could only think that Sun Tzu was rolling in his own grave. After the 12 retinue of cataphracts returned, they ensured that no enemy horsemen would succeed in getting around the formation. When at any point the infantries engaged each other, the cataphracts would show up and kindly provide suppositories to the enemy. While the final part of the enemy's army arrived, the protectors regrouped and changed formations. They took heavy casualties, but they could not fold here. They were so close to victory. The cataphracts had no time to rest, and they were ordered to over and over again to be battering rams against the enemy's flank. When Han Sui sees that the enemy all routed, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He had lost every battle till now, and he had finally broken his curse. Han Sui counterattacks with his supporting units. In a single battle, he wipes off 3 of Sun Tzu's armies off the face of China. We see that Sun Tzu was only 0.5 points away from abdicating his claim to emperorship. The string of defeats has heavily damaged his spirit. We need just a bit more. However, Sun Tzu has another trick up his sleeve, Sun Ren. Sun Ren was capable of night battles, isolating an enemy into a 1v1 even when near their supporting armies. Though our generals tried their best, even with an imperial army, Sun Ren's generals were too great to overcome. She continues and uses the 4 wounded armies to attack Zhu Shu. Zhu Shu's army had not had any time to recuperate since the previous conflict. Zhu Shu holds up in a little patch of ground surrounded by shallow water, difficult for infantry to get through. However, by this point, his cataphracts have been defeated. Worse, his archers run out of ammo. This battle hands Zhu Shu one of his only defeats in the entire war. Now, Sun Tzu had several exhausted armies in the Eastern Front, same as us. In the far northwest, where Liyue failed his siege assault prior, the brazen enemy army takes the Tong Pass near Dongzhuo's former lands. However, they find themselves under siege and challenge our general to an open field battle instead. What they find is an army filled to the brim with imperial units, all the way through. Until now, I've been referring to armies as imperial if they had enough imperial units. But our general had the real thing. Everybody in this army was an imperial soldier, handpicked by Emperor Xian and trained their whole lives for excellence, all led by none other than Dong Peishan. I never said she died. She just got wounded and took some time to recuperate. Coming back in full force, she is now the one who avenges Liyue's defeat, the same way he had done for her. He too is fine, by the way. The Imperial soldiers here specialize in crossbows, mounted and on foot. Though they lack the firing rate of Yi marksmen and Onyx dragons, along with lacking the ability to use fire, their crossbows take down even armored enemies with ease. Though we had no cavalry charge into the enemy, it did not matter. The sheer amount of crossbow bolts raining down from heaven destroyed the enemy forces. Seeing just how outmatched they were, the enemy army scatters to the wind. I'd like to tell you that, after another 100 turns, we finally fight Sun Tzu and battled him at his imperial capital. That Cao Cao had returned and allied himself with Sun Tzu. Liu Bei engaged in a heroic 1v1 against the enemy of the Han, Sun Tzu, in the rain, at the center of Sun Tzu's imperial palace, the city of a false emperor. But I'd be lying if I said that, and Confucius would have hated anything less than honesty. Perhaps anticlimactically, that was the final fight. The final straw that broke the elephant's back. Sun Tzu had a minor victory in the Eastern Front, with far more armies and an immense amount of losses. We spared generals so often that we honestly got to recruit many of them when we released him enough times, taking away some of his finest leaders. Sun Tzu did not focus on infrastructure, merchant markets, education, and temples. As a result, even though he arguably had more lands than us, our economy was multiple times stronger than his. On top of that, our focus on excellent diplomacy meant that Sun Tzu was the one surrounded by enemies from all sides, not us. After so many battles, so much bloodshed, it was Dong Peishan's easy victory that broke his spirit. Sun Tzu abdicates the claim to emperorship and confederates his lands into ours.
Destiny is wrought in steel and measured in blood. China cannot endure the chaos of man's aspiration forever. Virtue has shown Liu Bei the path. His brothers stood firm. The oath did not waver. The people were defended. They cheered his name. The will of heaven has made itself known. The empire, long divided, must unite beneath an emperor with celestial authority to rule. a dynasty to endure forever.
The Han Empire had finally returned, born anew, one ruled by virtue, not by corrupt eunuchs and power-hungry warlords, though it seemed that the cycle of dynasties rising then rotting was inevitable. At least, for now, there was peace. Art of War teaches you how to win. Sun Tzu wrote about the importance of the meticulous gathering and usage of information, the power of pragmatic thinking, using the trap of falling for emotions, shame, ego, and a desire for glory against your opponents, not yourself. And of course, foresight, to plan ahead, to seek the larger goal, to never miss an opportunity. It's still taught in business and military academies today. The Confucian Analects, although some parts have clearly not aged well, gives us great insight on a person who has influenced Asian culture 500 years before Jesus was born. At the very least, it advocates that you should think and move with virtue, attract like-minded friends, become someone better, and use it for the good of everyone around you. Never stop learning, never stop self-cultivating. He promises that it will never, ever be easy. In fact, never perfect either, only that it was the most divine and worthiest of struggles. The Art of War taught me how to win. The Confucian Analects taught me how to become someone worthy of winning. If you've ever felt like you were wanting in ancient wisdom, I'd say give these two works a shot. This video took 2 terabytes of footage and 9 months of my life where I dedicated just about all of my waking moments on it aside from when I stream. Probably shouldn't have taken that long, but I am a trash editor and not built for this at all. If you pity me or if you'd like to support this video, please like and comment. It helps YouTube push the video. If you don't know what to comment, just type me a heart and I'll give you one in return. If you'd like to support me more directly, I have YouTube memberships and now a Patreon. There you could find several exclusive videos of behind the scenes content where I talk a bit more in depth about my thoughts about either book and go over every little thing that I couldn't fit into the video. You'll also get your name in my next video. I also do variety streams. Drop by my Twitch and say hello. I'm gonna go pass out now. Bye. Okay, seriously, where the hell was Zhu Liang? Oh?